Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we'll go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Bedford Devant apartments in Brooklyn, New York, in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the Uncanny Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brett.
Alliance Assemble. Volume 76, and we're coming to you on Friday night. Brent, what could we possibly be changing days for?
Marvel movie reviews.
Right.
This was month 3 of 5 months of Marvel. 5 months in a row with a new Marvel movie.
It's
Month
almost
3
like,
right now.
the 5 days of Marvel Christmas. It just lasts all year, or at least 6 months of the year. 7 months of the year this time.
6 months out of the 6 months, 6 out of, I don't know, no math.
Yep.
5 months in a row though.
Yep,
I got you there.
we're enjoying it at this point. So we have some lovely members of the GUA network joining us tonight. So we're just going to go down with what I'm seeing on the screen. So Travis Hines from DC Alliance and Super Discussions. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, Chris. After watching and reviewing Injustice earlier this week, this has been a fantastic change of pace. So I'm excited to talk about this movie. As always, like any other MCU movie, it's my jam. So I can't wait for us to get into this. You hear about us talk about MCU all the time on DCA.
I know, it's like our sister show at that point, MCU DCA Light. And then we've got Tony, co-host of Ranger Alliance. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty sore. Did deadlifts yesterday at the gym. First time in 10, 11 years. I regret doing them the instant I lifted it up. I'm like, oh, it's been too long. Tomorrow's going to suck. I was not wrong. Not one bit.
Well, maybe tonight's discussion might lighten the load at that point. And then finally, the man who needs no introduction, the leader of Team Rangers, going tomorrow at that point, or today if you're listening to this. That'd be Fanboy Clay, co-host of DC Alliance, Ranger Alliance, and I feel like I'm missing some too. Star Wars
co-host of like half the network.
Half the network. Yep.
I'm doing pretty good. I am super excited to be talking about this film.
Wait a minute, hold on. Clay's excited, guys. We gotta be careful.
Well, because it's Marvel, not DC.
It's true.
Oof. It's Marvel Studios, not WB. That's
there we go. We gotta be specific.
To be fair, Tony, you're in the other group chat that we're all in for comics. I am, I give praise to each one. But I'm excited to talk about this movie. There's a huge controversy over this thing, and I don't know why. But I'm poking the bear a little bit, but it's going to be a fun review. I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yep. Well, let us get all these network plug sponsorship stuff out of the way. We're going to go quick hits. So we've got on Mondays, we got World's Finest True Believers going bi-weekly with Ranger Alliance, and we've got Tuesdays, we got DC Alliance, Wednesday Superhero Discussions, Thursday Star Wars Alliance, then we've got Fridays with Marvel Alliance, and then Saturdays bi-weekly with a walk through the multiverse, and Sundays bi-weekly slice of film. So check out all those shows, check out the feeds, check out everything, check out when we go live on the Geekverse YouTube channel, all that in the show notes. We've got some sponsors. We're going to start with, as always, our main sponsor for Marvel Alliance. That would be organicpricebooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. Excellent packaging, ships all over the world. JP and the OPB have got it going on. Again, MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. And then for this month, we've got Manscaped is our sponsor for the GUA this month. So who is the best in men's below the waist grooming? Champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the exclusive offer for you, 20% off with free worldwide shipping using the code GUAPOD at manscaped.com. Brent, we've got that lovely gift package for Manscaped. You've got the multi-function on-off switch, the great LED light. So if you want to kind of trim your stuff in the dark, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but it 4000K LED spotlight. So yeah, so you can definitely do that. And come on, let's be honest, shaving your face and body with the same trimmer, you're doing it all wrong. You got to go with the best.
And there's the wireless charging. Don't forget that as well.
Yeah, wireless charging. Come on, everything's got to go wireless these days, right?
Absolutely. So basically, boost your confidence with this new body trimmer with Manscaped to make me time the best time.
Exactly. Again, use that code GUAPOD for that 20% off and free shipping. So thank you, Manscaped, for being our sponsor for this network for this month. All right. We've got a movie, gentlemen. One more plug. Don't want to forget about. So if you are listening to this live tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Saturday, the 24-hour Geekverse charity stream is going live tomorrow. Do we know the start time tomorrow for that?
I believe it is 9:30 a.m. PST.
PST?
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
PST.
So start checking that out on the Geekverse channel.
I think 7 actually, because Travis versus Kirkland is like 7 a.m. PST for sports title main event. So
Okay,
Facebook.
I'm sorry. I was just quickly going through that thread. I was just making sure that I knew the right time for me to
All
kick
right, I'm
Travis's
looking
ass.
at the actual event.
There we go.
The
That's
actual
what I was
page.
really
I'm
looking
looking at it. 9 a.m. PST opening ceremonies.
There we go. Opening ceremonies on the YouTube channel. So yes, as we go through, we've got all these different championships, these battles at that point. But the big kingdom, the big daddy of them all is Team Wolf versus Team Ranger, the trivia battle to end all trivia battles at that point. So check that out. I will be hosting the Marvel portion of the show. And as I tweeted out, I hope you all have been watching closely.
And Heinz here is doing DC, right?
He is.
Correct. Sir.
Perfect.
Correct.
And Taylor is doing Star Wars. He'll be ending the event with his Star Wars trivia. So we will be seeing who will come out victorious, Team Ranger or Team Wolf.
We all know it's going to be me. It's okay. You can say it.
It's okay.
Is that 10:30?
Not
right.
we, but just you. Okay, wow.
So definitely make
so.
sure if you can't join us live or you want to donate, again, all proceeds are going to the British Columbia Children's Hospital. It's a great charity. Lots of stuff on the line. People are going to be shaving their heads at certain levels. So it's going to be a great time. So
Travis, now on your
on
left.
your
Just throwing the barbs out already. I can't believe it. It's been a year and we're not letting them forget about that one.
Thank you, guys. Clay's going to lose. That's the main point. All right. So, all right. All the plugs. Everything's done out of the way. I think we tightened it up. So let us get into Eternals. All right. Non-spoiler thoughts starting it off. Let us go with down the row at that point. Let's go with our guests, starting with Travis. Non-spoiler thoughts.
Well, I must say, I really enjoyed this film. There wasn't as much action per se as we're used to getting in most MCU films, but I thought that the character development between a lot of the characters were great. There was a lot of great pairings, and that's to be understandable with a group like that. You get good interactions between certain characters. I especially really enjoyed Cersei. I thought that she was a great lead and a lead that didn't expect to be a lead. And the Icarus stuff as well worked for me. There was just I had a few criticisms, but overall, I got to say, I really enjoyed this film, and I don't really see the divisiveness. I don't quite understand it. Like Clay mentioned in his little intro, I feel the same way. Watching this film, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see it again. If I didn't have a stupid midterm today, I would have saw it yesterday and today, like Brent, but no. So I can't wait for my second viewing. It's hard for me to get a gauge on where I'm going to rank this because of that. I have it ranked, but it's subject to change. I love how it tied into a lot of other major MCU things, so I can't wait to go into this deeper.
Nice. Tony.
All right, so at first I was going to see the movie last night, but plans happened, so I saw it today. I was going to see it with my wife last night. Thankfully, we didn't see last night because I don't think she would have liked it. The movie got great after the whole road trip. Once the whole road trip began, enjoying it. It was a slow start. For once, the band was getting back together, I was loving the scenes with the characters. But again, towards the end of it, there's just a little bit of a nitpick. Wasn't a fan of how the movie ended. I'm not going to see this movie, not for a long time. Once it drops on Disney Plus for free, I will gladly skip straight down to halfway point.
All right. Clay.
I really enjoyed this movie. It is not the best MCU movie. It is not the worst MCU movie. But I had a great time. Small story. I had a completely packed, completely sold out IMAX theater. If anybody has been in a fully packed IMAX theater, you know that it can get kind of toasty. Because of that, unfortunately, there was just this like tension in the air, kind of,
And smell.
Definitely. But I was actually talking to you guys and said that me and Abby may be recording something immediately after, because for the very first time, I, as well as her, were on the same level of knowledge when it came to these characters. She came out saying, "Hey, I'm just going to let you know now, this will always be the movie that I know as having a really crappy experience, so I'm not going to record anything." And I was like, "Oof, okay." So she has had some time to think about it. We may sit down later on to talk about it. Maybe something that we can throw on the Patreon. We're not entirely sure yet, but overall, really enjoyed the film. Don't want to go too deep into spoilers because, of course, non-spoiler stuff. But I cannot wait to get into it.
All right, Brent.
So I've got some conflicting opinions about this movie. In general, I liked it. I totally agree with what Clay said. Not the best, not the worst, and it's been a problem with movie Twitter and stuff for a long time, where every single movie has to be the best one ever. Every single movie's got to be the worst one ever. There's no room for any kind of nuance in the middle there, and I think that's where this one falls. It's somewhere in the middle. I love the representation that this movie brought. I absolutely love that. I think it was fantastic. Kudos to Marvel for doing it. They've got a long ways to go still, because we've got 20 movies starring guys named Chris, and they've really, I feel like in phase 4, have made a really big concentrated effort. And no offense, Chris. And I think this is great. I think it's a good positive step forward. I want to see that trend continue. I will tell you, I was very concerned going into the movie with how they were going to introduce such a large cast. Now, I'm not saying I felt like we needed a solo movie route where every single character deserved their own movie or something like that. I don't think that. And ultimately, the way they did introduce all the characters, which we'll talk about, for me, it worked really, really well. Like, let's be frank. Nobody could have told you the name of all of these characters prior to this movie. Nobody could have. Nobody has read that much.
Some are going to still struggle with doing it now.
They will still struggle with it now. But
I have the IMDb cast list pulled up on my phone just in case I make a mistake.
For me, I can now look at a picture of all the Eternals and be like, okay, I know which character this is and what their overall deal or powers are. I know what character that is and what their deal and powers are. And I could not have done that, 2 days ago or whatever. Like, I would have struggled to do that. I would have known a few of them, but not all of them. I think that was a really huge challenge, and ultimately they did meet, for me anyway, they did meet that particular challenge. At the same time, there's this whole, and All in the Game mentioned it, there's this whole debate right now on should this have been a Disney Plus show. I'm in a weird spot with the runtime with this, because part of me feels like the actual movie we got somewhere between 10, 15 minutes too long. They probably could have trimmed a little bit. At the same time, I do kind of see the point of could have been better served with a 6-hour Disney Plus show. And so it's just, I feel like it was too long for putting it down into a movie, or they could have expanded it, let us get to know the characters a little bit more, give us a little bit more time to breathe. Because it's weird. Like, this movie feels both slow and lightning fast at the same time to me. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot in it that I like. There's a few things I have problems with that we'll get to. But overall, I think the movie is a win overall.
Yeah, I had a very interesting kind of walking out of the theater. I liked it, but I think what happened to me as I liked it more as I slept on it and started thinking about it and started kind of building the show notes when I got home. Um, when I got home, I knew Aaron had asked me, I said, "What did you think?" I said, "You're gonna really like this movie because though she appreciates the action beats of most of the Marvel movies, that's not her thing about them. She loves the character development. So this will be a movie right up her alley when it does drop on Blu-ray and Disney Plus." I always knew the struggle with this movie was going to be the amount of characters introduced for a group of characters that, well, let's be frank, audience, not many people can name the Eternals right off the top of their head, let alone one Eternal at that point. So this was always going to be you know, a bigger struggle with it. Did they do an okay job? Yeah, I think they did an okay job with the time that they had. What I enjoyed was a different change of pace for what we used to seeing in a lot of different Marvel movies, what people say kind of the assembly Marvel formula. I like that they chose someone like Chloe Zhao to give it a different flair and a different style. And I think with some of the reviews that have not been keen on this one is that they got used to a certain style of movie and they didn't get it. It wasn't up their alley at that point. But I am with all in the game that I hope that the poor reception doesn't let them stop taking risks and going in that. I respect Kevin Feige enough that this won't scare them, but it might change in some direction. But I don't think they're ever going to shy away from kind of pushing the envelope because, as I've said with this phase, they have done things that work normally with their formula, and they have done very different things for their formula that have gotten great responses. So my overall impression of this movie has improved over the last 24 hours. It is as a lot of us have said, it's not my top movie. It is not my bottom movie. I like this movie, and I think that's okay to say with an MCU movie. It's okay to like and not necessarily, say it has to be a swing out of the park. So, and I think that's a lot of times with origin films, we might get into a problem with expecting a lot out of an origin. I will expect to be wherever these characters come up next, whether it be a sequel movie or they're going to be spread out across different films. That's where I'm going to really tell how, and maybe when I revisit the movie, when I see these characters again, appreciate it a lot more. So.
You said something there I got to touch on. You used the word origin, and I want to make it clear, like, this is an origin film. Like, this is the history of the Eternals. We get the history, we find out their deal, they find out their deal, they go through their journey of finding out what they thought was the case, what they find what is really happening is not necessarily what they were led to believe. Like, this is their origin story, because I have seen a few complaints online that people are like, oh, we needed an origin for these characters. I'm like, you did not watch the same movie that I watched. This was the Eternals origin story. It doesn't mean you didn't want more detail. Doesn't mean maybe I get the arguments for give me half the cast, introduce half of them now and introduce another half in the next movie or something. Like, I get those kind of arguments, but I'm like, this is the origin story. Like, let's just be clear about that.
It is. So let us take our first ad break before we get into spoilers. Nice little break section at that point. So listeners, as you know, this is a ad-supported network, so we're going to have some ads. They may be a bit loud. We don't get to choose them, so I'm sorry if you get the same ad 3 times like I usually do when I listen to the stuff on the network. But hey, it is what it is. It helps pay the bills. So I'm going to give you that 3 count to turn that volume down. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. Spoiler time. So if you have not seen Eternals and you don't want to be spoiled, we'll see you when you come back and watch and listen to it. Otherwise, here we go. So, I want to start off before we kind of get into the characters of, for those people who have never read the comics of Eternals and don't know kind of the basics idea of them, it's kind of an idea of what happened in the comics versus the film. One of the biggest things is in the film, you've got immortal space robots versus enhanced humans. And the Celestials came to Earth 4 times, and the Eternals were created by Jack the King Kirby. Many, many things have been created by Jack the King Kirby, including the New Gods. Hey, if you like the New Gods, you might see some similarities between the Eternals. The Celestials came to Earth 4 times in order to screw with our genetics, and they basically took the humans in the comics into 3 groups: humans, deviants, and Eternals. Deviants were actually intelligent in the comics. They had cities and ruled over humans. Each time the Celestials came, they came to judge humanity, whether it was worth continuing to live. The Eternals were improved humans that were basically made immortal with powers. But the Celestials left a celestial gene in humans that gave them the capacity to someday have superpowers. Using the example of Spider-Man, bit by a radioactive spider, ignited his gene, his celestial gene, to take on powers. So those are basically some of this, on a very simple level. At that point, they did live in a mountain city called Olympia. It wasn't fictitious. And being the Prime Eternal was always a big power struggle with the Eternals in the comics. Druid is one that is always striving for that power and always comes up this short. So, any of y'all were ever read any Eternals comics before coming into this?
Like
Yeah.
2 issues.
So I think I'm on the same page as Tony. Tony, did you read the most recent 2021, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I will admit, you open up issue number 1 of 2020's. Well, I don't even think it's on the first page. It may be on the opening credits. It shows every single Eternal. And as soon as they did that, I read the issue and I said, this is going to be way too much for me.
Yep.
And I don't think that should tear you away, because honestly, after watching the movie, I kind of want to pull through it. And I kind of want to at least attempt something. I do believe Neil Gaiman's Eternals is probably the heaviest, but it was back in 2006, I believe. I don't know where to start though. Is there, because I'm looking at Marvel Unlimited right now, to be completely honest. The very first thing that popped up is, want to know more about the Eternals? Start here. And it shows the 2021, it shows Neil Gaiman's Eternals, Jack Kirby's Eternals, and then it goes off to individual characters.
I would highly suggest, I just think Neil Gaiman's run, I know, Clay, you have a thing with John Romita Jr. in artwork, so if you can get past that, it is a very good intro, because it sets up that was the only thing I ever read with Eternals before I even came into this, and I feel that it gave a good idea of these characters, and you can kind of see they took little homages to it from that run. So I would suggest there. But,
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I've read that run. I've read the Neil Gaiman one's the one from like 2006, right?
Yeah.
Like 7
Yeah.
issues, something like that.
Yep.
Okay, so I've read that one, and I've read the 9-issue run from 2009 or 2008, 2009, which deals a lot with them having amnesia and finding out who they are between these two. And they're okay. Like most outside of those 2 series, which is 16 issues between them, most of what I have read has been like, oh, Circe was with the Avengers.
Yeah.
Or Icarus showed up in an Avengers issue or something like that. Like I really haven't read. I've only read those 2 relatively short series of the comic book.
So, kind of with that in mind, again, this is for even us comic fans at that point. We don't have a big background of it, but they're recent comics. So, let's start off with looking at the number of protagonist characters. So, Tony, what are some thoughts and kind of favorite moments and things you want to talk about with a couple of first thoughts of Circe, played by Gemma Chan?
I enjoy like what she's given. Her writing was great. The scenes, I wish they went more into like how she was able to do what she was able to do at the end, like with how to stop the celestial from being born. I wish they went more into that. Even the whole tree of turning the deviant into that trade. I want to know more about her powers a bit. That's the one thing of all of them, I know a lot about the powers, except for her. I feel like they were a bit lacking on that one part.
I mean, I will just say just one small thing. Wasn't it more of like, hey, she's just an elemental? Like, wasn't that the big thing?
That was manipulates matter.
Yeah, transmutation.
Oh, okay. So There you go. I didn't even think about that. Cool.
Because all she kept talking was just the stones, the metal. Like it was just all about the just changing the elements. Was as you guys were saying, like just come out and say it that way. But other than that, I enjoy her. Out of all of them, all 10, I want to see her and like, a few others, like her, Sprite, and Druid. Those are my top 3. I want to see again in the next project ASAP.
What do you got, Clay? What are your opinions on Cersei's?
I really love the aspect of her because it is mentioned in this film, I think more than once for sure. But she immediately fell in love with humanity from the very start. I think you needed a character like that. And it's weird how everybody's saying an unexpected lead because yes, I guess the trailers really do show Icarus in all of his glory. You know, I almost said I'm gonna try not to say it. It's just a small joke that we were talking behind the curtain, guys.
Superman.
But you know, I saw her as the lead the entire time. It opens with her and closes with her. She is 100% the lead character in this movie.
I mean, they said that before the movie ever came out. Like that wasn't. If you follow the news at all, you knew she was pretty much the lead.
Yeah, I enjoyed her where she went as far as like, okay, of course, immortal, you know, arriving 5000 BC. Where is she in current time? Where is she in 2020? Oh, she's teaching kids. She is teaching literally what she has been through, which I think is a really cool aspect of thinking when you really get down to it. But I enjoyed her, I guess, humanity, her softness in the sense of when you look at everybody else and how they kind of just like walked away, you know, and there's some people that will argue against that, but I enjoyed her powers. I enjoyed her berserker mode for just a split second with turning the variant into, or deviant, not variant, sorry, into the a tree. I didn't even think it was a tree. I honestly just thought that, you know, she basically morphed him and he just turned into a statue basically. But it was nice. It was really, really cool. I want more of her. I do feel like there is more to this movie. You know, I made the joke about a Zoe cut earlier today. But
Stop that.
I do feel like because we will get more into it when we're going to be talking about villains and things like that. I do think there was probably a lot more details for characters, and I wanted a little bit more from Cersei as well, because you have this moment like in the very beginning where she's like on her phone and you find out that like she's addicted to her phone. And I'm like, okay, that's a part of her personality that we didn't see after that, like at all. Like, I guess the only thing that hinted towards it was her phone rang in the middle of a serious conversation.
Mhm.
But that's not really talking about the quote unquote addiction to the phone. She was a little mild mannered, a little like shy or quiet throughout the film. But other than that, I didn't really see anything more from her. And I do want to see more of her going forward. I think that she was able to take charge pretty well. The scenes where she had to show emotion, she did great. What was it? It was the moment. I want to find out how you pronounce their leader, their god, or whatever. What is it?
Erisham.
Erisham? Okay.
Yeah, Erisham the
So
judge.
the moment she speaks to him and learns everything, and then it immediately cuts back to where they were in Australia, and like she just has tears rolling down her face. Like I felt that, and I felt that it was real, and it was really well played out. But yeah, overall, I do want to see her more in the future of the MCU.
Yeah, when it comes to Cersei, you already, we'll get to Ajax later. She is the original leader of this group of Eternals at that point, and passes the mantle to Cersei. I again, it's women being leaders in this group of of immortal beings, and it is it is very much a reluctant hero's journey for her. She doesn't originally see herself as a leader. She doesn't see herself as the one who should be leading necessarily, but she also doesn't shy away from it. She is willing to take charge and make sure that everyone is going where they need to be. But I think I really like what you all said before, is like you really see out of everyone in the group, she is the one truly that believes through and through, from beginning of the movie to the end, that humanity is worth saving. Even when she learns the truth about what's going on, that they are mainly, the more humans there, the more the humans, once they reach the capacity needed to hatch the celestial egg that is within the earth, she's willing to do everything possible, even if it means sacrificing herself, even though, again, they're immortal, but doing what is necessary to do that. I really enjoyed it. I think, as we've said, we want to see more from her, to see exactly her to really be that leader she's trying to be and going on this journey. Now, flashing forward to the end of the movie, where do they go? What is she doing? How did she come back from that? I think it's going to be interesting to see wherever the journey Arishem takes her on, how she comes back. That's what I'm really fascinated about and seeing. But one thing I did not feel the chemistry between her and Icarus. And I have a issue with Icarus, and we'll get to that. I just think it was just very, and it could have been meant at that point. I just didn't feel that real chemistry between them. That's my one critique, but it's not on her.
I kind of think there's a good reason for that. We didn't really see that much of their relationship. They were married for 5,000 years, but we saw them meet each other for the first time. Like, literally, my name is Icarus. Hi, I'm Cersei. Just ignore the fact that I look like a blue person from Captain Marvel. Totally different, I promise. But then we basically jumped to the two of them, having what people were freaking out about the MCU's first sex scene. Yeah, I guess technically, but it was next to nothing. And then
you saw more skin than you did with Tony Stark.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'll give you that. But then at the end of it all, it's
like children, Brent. The children.
The bulk of the movie, though, they're estranged from each other. She hasn't seen him in however many, decades or centuries. He just took off on her. She doesn't know why. They're estranged. So I would say what you call the chemistry between them, to me, is like the awkwardness when you're around your ex for the first time after not seeing them for a long time. And I honestly, I thought she did a really good job. I thought she was great as effectively the lead role. Captain Marvel jokes aside, I'm glad when I first found out, I was like, oh, I'm kind of surprised that they're doing such a major character in this movie who they've already had. There's been a few other characters, like smaller actors, who have been in multiple roles. This, I think, is the biggest, though, who's played multiple. To be fair, her Captain Marvel part wasn't massive, and she didn't make it out of that movie anyway. But think about all the sand getting into uncomfortable places. That's right.
And I will agree. I'm not talking about the awkwardness between them when they meet again. That I totally buy. I'm just saying, like, him even trying to pine after when the scenes we do see, it just didn't seem they were gelling.
Well, so even some of that, I was like, he is, as we learn later, like, he is about his duty. Like, he was made for this purpose, and it's like he needed Ajax's permission to pursue anything else. To that you can have a life, you can be happy, you can have people you love. It does, yes, you can follow your mission, but at the same time, you can have these other things. Effectively, Ajax was just saying, get some work-life balance here. But I thought Gemma Chan was a good lead. I'm glad that she made it out of the movie in this case, unlike in the Captain Marvel appearance, so that we can see her again.
Yeah. Travis, what you got for Cersei?
I gotta say, first of all, I enjoy her power. I haven't seen this in the MCU since Thanos had the Infinity Gauntlet. We got a few of those moments then, So I kind of really enjoyed that. And some of these skills actually for some of the Eternals remind me of Thanos, so which kind of makes sense. But I enjoyed her. I didn't get the not seeing the chemistry that you got. I got more of the Brent talking about we didn't get to see them for 5,000 years. We only got to we're just thrust into this relationship. The real thing that I enjoyed was it made perfect sense why she was Ajax's successor and nobody else. I love how they all looked to Icarus to lead because he just for only reason was because he was the most powerful, and that was not what they needed. And even more than that, Cersei saw the good in humanity even before Ajax did. And I think that's why she picked her as her successor, because ultimately she did come to realize. But when she first came there, that was not. She was full on board. Oh, another planet, number 20,000 add to the collection kind of deal, and just keep going. But something happened on this planet, and we didn't. I would have liked more explanation from that, because she kind of just said, "Well, they brought back all the people with the snap," and then it was kind of. I wanted more. I wanted her to talk about it a bit more. I know she said she was a mom. I wanted more examples, I guess, but I enjoyed Cersei. I thought that it was great how she doubted herself a couple times, and the more of the Eternals were looking to Icarus, and I love that little moment that she has with Athena, where Athena basically gives her the
Athena.
Drop the A.
Drop the A. And she has this great little moment with her. And another Eternal comes in, and she's like, "I already handled it. I got that." Faustus comes in, and she's like, "I got that. I did the motivating speech." And I just really enjoyed Cersei. I thought it was great, and I wasn't expecting her to be able to basically. Did she turn the Eternal into ice? Like, is he an iceberg out there? That's what I was assuming.
Marble.
He was.
I thought it was at first two ice.
Okay, should have been an iceberg.
Oh,
Would've been
it's
better.
marble. I was
I
gonna
think it's-
say they clearly don't know how global warming works here on Earth. Because that
I
thing
don't
will be
think that
melted
was-
by next year.
I don't
Well,
think that
Icarus
was
did.
ice.
Yeah. All right. So, any last comments before we move on to our next Eternal? All right. Clay, why don't you talk about our little one, Sprite, played by Leah McHugh.
I really enjoyed Sprite. I thought she had a really complex story. Again, there's that. This is why I feel like there's still a lot left on the cutting room floor, because there's there is a lot of criticism towards this. There's a lot of characters. You have to put it within a certain amount of time, and that means some characters are not going to be fleshed out as much as each individual fan wants them to be. Sprite was very complicated. She was thriving when they first arrived. You saw her be very happy. She was the storyteller. She was doing all these awesome little light shows for people, which I thought was really, really cool. And it does come back to somewhat of Kingo's story, and we'll get to that. But the very interesting and kind of cliche storyline is, she's younger than, quote unquote, younger, or at least younger looking than all the other Eternals. So when it comes to the humans and kind of how things evolve, people start to question, why isn't that person aging at all? So it complicates her life, and so she's having to move, every so often. But she's 7,000 years old. She's going to start to grow and mature without actually growing. And so she is wanting to experience these things as a 7,000-year-old should. Love and relationships and things like that. And she's not able to. We see her for the first time in present day as a completely different person because of her illusion. And then we don't know it's her until she takes it down and is like talking to Cersei, like, "Hey, let's go. I want to go home." But her whole story about loving Icarus, I mean, it only makes sense to, like, why not fall in love with somebody like herself? Somebody who's going to understand her condition, quote unquote. But but her powers seemed very far and in between. Like, I guess the whole invisibility is illusions, but like, is the light show that she was able to do an illusion also?
Mhm.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that is her power, illusions, right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
strictly her power.
Yep.
And at some points it seemed very small, but like she didn't really get to play along with it that much. But when she duplicated the volcano to trick Circe into like, hey, which one is the actual celestial? The visually that looked awesome.
Mhm.
And so I do want to ask you guys this because of what happens at the end of the movie. Does she still have her powers?
Probably
I don't
not.
think so.
I think that's the part of I don't think she does, just because of, if she's going to age at that point. I think there's something has to be taken away in order for give her
They made her human, and she, the judge did not take her with the other Eternals, with the other surviving Eternals. He did not take her.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
So
That's true.
to me, she's totally human, which is probably smart because I don't know how old the actress is, but she's a kid.
She's
so
14 or
okay. So
15?
if they want to use her again in future movies, she's going to age, and so
It's very
this is a
easy.
way that they could still have her character around, and there's a in-story reason for why she's aging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in answering all in the games, like, did you feel her extra love for Icarus though? That
Nope.
one, I not necessarily felt that landed well at all until like someone
Well,
called it, and then it
yeah.
made okay. Then we started seeing it. I mean, made sense in the sense of, by the time we see her Sprite, she's very jaded about the whole thing because she can't really participate and experience all these different things. Like, she's wanting something. She's realized being in this body set is very limiting in the sense of no one seems to take her seriously, even though even her own team members don't sometimes take her seriously. And so I enjoyed her journey in the sense of it made sense, not necessarily her love for joining Icarus, but I understand why she ended up taking Icarus's side, because it felt the most natural for her, because he, in her mind, looked at her more than what she looked like physically.
And I do like the explanation of how we as an audience find out of, oh, have you ever read Peter Pan? Peter, Wendy, and Tinkerbell. That connection made total sense.
Yes.
You're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay.
Especially how she looks.
Yes.
Very much
Yeah.
how she looks. Brent, what do you feel about Sprite?
Honestly, not much. Overall, I wasn't, no disrespect to her. I didn't think she was that great of an actress. I mean, she was fine. She was serviceable. That's about as high as I can say. Her powers visually were really cool. I love the effect of her powers.
Mhm.
Like, visually, this movie was beautiful.
Yes.
I didn't care that much about her character. I didn't feel they developed her that much. We got enough to understand she's the adult in the kid's body. We've seen it before. I most recently saw it in Invincible with Monster Girl. We've seen this type of thing before. She was fine. She was serviceable. I understood why she went with Icarus. I think it's a fair criticism to those who say they don't really believe that she loved Icarus, because we really only saw her staring at him the one time. And I think a fair criticism of this movie in general is there was an awful lot of tell, don't show. They told us that she loved her, but we really didn't see that much of it. And you knew this movie was going to be that way when out of the gate you got a few paragraphs of exposition right at the top. There was like 3-4 exposition dumps in this movie. I don't know. There was a lot. I enjoyed some of them more than others, but regardless, for Sprite, I thought, I mean, not every character is going to get their due, and I wasn't that upset that she, for example, Gilgamesh, I liked him more. We didn't get much from him either. I would have rather had him get more time and Sprite even get a little bit less than as is.
Mm-hmm. Travis, any thoughts on Sprite?
You're muted, sir.
I'm in Brent's camp. Sprite was like a meh for me. I would have rather seen more time with other characters. the whole being in love with Icarus. I saw her spending a lot more time with Cersei. So that stab and at the end, it didn't work as well for me just because we heard that she was in love with Icarus. Trying to think, her powers were cool as well, but for the most part, I would have enjoyed more time with more Eternals, and some of her choices didn't make sense to me. And one other fun fact: no one's going to ask Phaetos if he wants to become human and raise his kid. And
they shouldn't. He flat out said, "I am 100% comfortable with everything about who I am." Like if he suddenly wanted to become a human, that would have gone against a very empowering moment.
Maybe he didn't know it was an option on the table, Brent. Maybe he wants.
No.
I think he would. I think he would rather see his son grow and be with him rather than watch his son grow up.
He is going to get to see his son grow.
Yeah, and he's going to get to see his son in, and he's going to be there for see his old family in. So
think of it this way: he now almost has a guarantee he will get to see his son's entire life, whereas before he knows he doesn't get to see that. He gets to spare his own child the loss of a parent because his child won't have to go through that. And the most important part again is he's comfortable with who he is. Sprite wasn't comfortable with who she was. You see that from the moment you're introduced to her in the bar.
Well, I guess Brent's okay with the kid having one parent because if he would have turned human, he wouldn't have got taken. So I'm just looking out for kids here, and Brent is clearly.
To be fair, he didn't know he was going to get taken, and that's just—it's a superhero thing. You got to lose a parent. You got to lose a parent.
I'm just having fun here.
Watch out for that kid's uncle. That's what I'm going to say.
On your left, right on your left. All right. The next one is probably at least one of my favorite characters from is Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani. I like that the callback to it's definitely a callback to Neil Gaiman's run, switching the side. Sprite in the comics is the celebrity, using that in this type it's Kingo. I love the callback also, and that you taking that and being a Bollywood actor superstar, and I laughed so much seeing like how have you been able to convince people like, oh, I just do lineage at that point. And if you're if you're any kind of fan of Bollywood, there are dynasties in Bollywood of whole families that are in this. So it is a tip of the hat to that, and very masterfully done. His kind of sarcastic humor throughout, I thought it was really good. His playoff of his valet, Quran, that was sweet. You know, it was just like the kid that grew up, especially like, oh yeah, he thought I was a vampire and stabbed me. I still haven't fully forgiven him yet. And saying I've apologized so many times, not so much. He was I think next to, I think Faustus is the heart of this group. I think Kingo could be kind of, not fully like Faustus the heart, but I think he that's why it was kind of hard for me to see him flip saying like he believes what Icarus believes, because I just go back to when he needed to leave his production at that, but all these people, what are they going to do? Like he does care about humanity. And I think he struggles with that, with duty of being an eternal. But I think Kumail, I've loved him in a lot of different things. I think I'm excited to see where he grows with this, but I thought he was a joy to watch on screen. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I thought he was great. I mean, Kumail Nanjiani, I think he's hilarious. I think he's a great actor. He's funny. I've seen him in several things now, and I was excited when he got announced for this. All in the game said, love that he got ripped, but he really didn't need to. I said the same thing. I'm like, he did all this work. He looks phenomenal, and they didn't show it. Like, oh, there's like one good shot of his arms, and I'm like, man, you do all that work. You deserve a little more love than that visually. But no, seriously, he was a good character. And one thing I appreciate about this movie is the antagonists of the movie are not like, they're not true villains, right? It's just it's almost a nature's thing. And in his case, he believed in what the Celestials were doing. That's what he was literally made for. He believed in it. He believed in Icarus. But at the same time, he's like, I can't fight you guys. So it's basically, he took himself out of it because he's like, I can't fight for either side right now because I'm not going to attack my family. And
so a coward, in other words.
No, I don't think he was a coward. I definitely don't think he was a coward. I think it was interesting. Would I have liked to see him yet in the final fight from a standpoint of that? Sure, because I think his powers were cool looking. It was hilarious when he was underneath the one deviant that he blew up and then asking his buddy, "Did you get the shot?" But this movie, I thought, made a good point of being like, they're not villains. You can disagree with them, but they're not villains. Like his motivation wasn't to save 7 billion lives on Earth. It was to help create galaxies of beings. Like, I mean, you kind of get it, right?
No.
Travis, I
Why
think
not?
has
Let's
some
hear it. Why not?
disagreement.
I really enjoyed everything up until that point when he made that decision. I thought it was hilarious. But like Chris said before, with all him caring about shutting down production because everyone's depending on him, one hand, him being so distraught about Ajax dying and being so sad about it, and then him being so shocked when he found out that Icarus was the one that killed Ajax. He was like, no, it couldn't be. And then I was expecting pretty much the entire battle after seeing that. Oh, Icarus is he's going to come in and stand up to Icarus at some point because he said multiple times, I'm with you. They never showed us why this would be the case, but he said, I'm with you. I'll follow you like I always have.
I'm with you to the end of the line.
You guys separated you guys separated for thousands of years. So why didn't you follow him then? You went off and made your own path, made your own. I just don't understand the complete drop of, I'm out. I can kind of see Icarus's point of view, even though he just killed our leader, and I cried about it for about an hour ago. I cried about it and was right distraught. Now I'm okay with that. I'm going to put that past. He just did that for his duty. No, I gotta say, if they showed us more times in the past of the movie, in the other 2 hours of the movie, of him kind of seeing that way, no, all they showed pretty much, like Chris said, was even though sometimes he's reluctant, he has heart, he cares for people, he'll stand up for people. But in this case, he turns his back. That did not work for me whatsoever. It was my biggest criticism of the movie was him just turning tail and we not seeing him again until after. He chills out with everybody after. Oh, Icarus is gone. Oh, everything's okay. And I'll laugh and joke around now and take Sprite. And no, I just thought that was so stupid. He could have easily helped, and you didn't have. It wouldn't take anything away.
Who was he supposed to help?
The rest of the group trying to stop Icarus.
But that's the point. Were they there? Were they on the right? I'm not saying yes,
clearly.
or I'm not saying no. I don't think it is. Like, that's the whole point of the Celestials. No. It's not clear.
They didn't know. If you give me more Icarus throughout the whole 2 hours, I can understand what Icarus did because you spent 2 hours building to that. You did not do that with him. You spent 2 hours making me think that he's this kind, loving person, and then at the very end, when his family needs him, when they all look at him and say, "We need you," he turns out and pieces out. No,
which family? Icarus and Sprite. Icarus and Sprite. That family.
No, not the one who killed their adopted. Oh yeah, Icarus is okay. You're allowed to kill the mother, and you can still be our adopted family. Oh, guess what? Jason's going to be taken back in Titans as well with that attitude. No, it's just
he will be taken back in Titans.
No, he will not. He'll always be an outsider. But I just thought that's a bit more of an. I can't understand that logic at all. So that's just it did not work for me. It took me right out of the movie seeing him come back too and just be like, "Oh, hey guys, glad you're all done your fighting and the almost end of the world event. How you doing?" So it just didn't work.
Clay's got point of order. Tony, I know you're up next, but Clay's got point of order. He's raising his hand, which is interesting.
Patiently.
I am in between both Brent and Travis, and here is my reason why. Yes, I was disappointed that Kingo did not come into the final fight because I think visually, with his powers, with his strength, he could have helped out immensely. Yes, that is a no-brainer.
I don't think he was that strong. He only ever knocked a deviant back. He never did any real damage but one time.
Well, I mean, the one thing that didn't sell that case was the fact that, like, when he was fighting the deviant, when they were in, I think it was the Amazon, he didn't get a clear shot except for once, and that was when he purposely went. Like, he kept on like shooting behind him, like it was a video game.
I thought of him as a stormtrooper. I'm like, oh, yes, I see what's going on here.
Yes, but the big thing to argue against Travis is it is a trope, but we all have that family member that just shies away from any conflict. That's just like, you know what? I don't, it doesn't matter whether I agree or disagree with any part of this family. I just want to get away from the conflict.
Hashtag family. Where's Vin Diesel?
And I'm really surprised he didn't show up here. But that is how I see Kingo. Is he's the person that respects his family. You know, I mean, there was that one line I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Sprite, but when she straight up said in front of everybody, Icarus, you're the strongest. You need to be the leader. I felt a little like cringe. I was like, oof, no, that's a bad way to go. But in some light, it felt that Kingo felt the same way. And I don't know how or why, but everybody gave the nickname of Icarus like as boss. You know, because Kingo said it, and
Kingo
then
said
also,
it for sure. Yeah.
and Fastos said it as well, but more so as a joke, or like kind of like eye rolling at that point. But with Kingo, I enjoyed his character. I thought it was very clever as far as like his way of living in Bollywood, you know, with the lineage. I thought that was great writing, to be completely honest. Even greater writing bouncing off of his valet. Like it was just great. I honestly really enjoyed it. But yeah, I do think he is that character that is just like, I'm going to go into, like, he's the guy at Thanksgiving dinner when everybody's yelling, he's taking his food, going into his room and just eating. Like, that's what he's going to do. And then when it quiets down, he's going to enjoy the time around people like nothing ever happened. Can that be a problematic or like just a flaw? Yes, it definitely can be. And can it be something that they move forward with in a future installment of wherever they're going to be in the future of the MCU? Yeah, sure. But I do see where they went with Kingo. And it doesn't really hurt the film, but it does hurt fans of the character that kind of latched onto him. Mm-hmm. So I see where people are getting at when they're like, hey, this is clearly the bad guy, or this is clearly the good guy. Like, you should fight for the good. It's very black and white sometimes when it comes to family. Hashtag Vin Diesel. It's just the way it is. And we as the audience see, okay, the destruction of the world, that is bad. But in the perspective of what Erisham has said, like, you are destroying one planet so that way the galaxy and universe will live and flourish for an eternity. Because you will continue to do this, but the universe will live on, is what you're going for. So, like, yeah, Earth may have died, but other populated planets may still be able to live.
How funny was it when Karun said, no, save everybody, but I'm human, so I'm a little biased. So funny.
His dialogue was great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when they destroyed the first camera and they're like, oh man, no, you did not. And then he pulls out the second one with Sprite. And then the very last one is this small camcorder. Oh, it was, I feel like if they did one more camera, it probably would have been too far with the joke, but 3 just felt right. It was so good.
Tony, what do you have to say about Kingo and his valet?
When I first saw him in the trailers or the posters, I thought he'd be more of a serious kind of character, like bad to the bone, but not total opposite. Like, his jokes they all landed for me. The whole what he should have done at the end of it, I honestly think if I was in his position, would have done the same thing. Because, like, don't know what to do. Both sides, it's a win-win. Like, yes, I love the people on Earth. I don't want them to die. But at the same point, if this doesn't happen, a planet, a galaxy won't happen as well. So it's like, when go back in time and you kill, like, Thanos. Like, you save a bunch of people, but there's always a loss wherever you looked at. I would have done the same thing if I was him, honestly. Yes, I would have loved to see that battle versus Icarus and Kingo, because I do think that would have been great. Like, if they used him and what was the guy that could all like use all the technology?
Fastos.
If they two of them versus him, that would have been a great bout to just watch. But I want to see more of him, like definitely like in a TV show, like nice little 6-episode TV show. His camera crew, him, and Karen will be a great one.
Yeah, it'd be good. So, all right, we're gonna take our second ad break before delving into some of our Eternals and some antagonists later on. So again, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm gonna give you that 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, Brent, why don't you lead us off with Fastos?
Great character. I love that we finally have an actual homosexual character. And yeah, sure, Joe Russo in Endgame, but I mean like a real character to one of the movies. I think that's awesome. His powers visually were really cool. The first time we really got a good look at his powers, the whole this is an engine. It's like this is a plow. It's like pretty funny there. One thing I couldn't get out of my mind,
the whole thing at that point. That was great.
A lot of his powers were visualized by multiple rings on top of each other. And I kept listening, like paying attention, expecting some sort of reference to the 10 rings from Shang-Chi. Didn't happen. But at the end of that movie, we saw those rings with Wong, and he was manipulating them in a way that looked very similar to how the multiversal rings of He Who Remains and Loki looked. And I just keep seeing this motif of different sized rings stacked on top of each other. We've now seen it in like 3 different properties, and I feel like I'm forgetting another one. But in general, I liked him. He was a character whom we really didn't get a ton of time with, but the time that we got, I felt like they utilized well. Like for me, if they had just info dumped every single character at once, I would have had a hard time keeping them all straight. But it was like, okay, we're going to introduce you to Circe, and then we're going to introduce you to Sprite, and then we're going to introduce you to Icarus, and so on down the line. And by the time we got to Fastos, it's like, okay, I have a solid understanding of who everyone was to before this point. Bring on the next one. And when he called Icarus Clark, I was cracking up.
We got, and I love how on the game earlier said, did the DC references work for everyone? Well, we got more Superman references than we've had in the DCEU in a while. So, as Clayton, Travis, what are some thoughts on Fastos?
My favorite Eternal. I absolutely loved his story. Like Brent said, there wasn't a big lot of it, but what we got, everything worked for me. It kind of established in the flashback that he gets a little ahead of himself in terms of like what kind of inventions he's making. He's kind of pushing the technology, and Druid even mentions like you got to watch out for that. He says it's the cause of the war that they have, and he's very dismissive of it. But we see in another flashback to Hiroshima, and he is completely devastated. He's like ownership, and he's completely checking out. So you would think from that he would be the one that is completely out on humanity. But I love how he gets his renewed faith in humanity by seeing one of the greatest things about humanity, the whole being a parent and the whole cycle like that of finding love and having a kid. So I just love that that's what brought him back into humanity after seeing the devastation that he saw firsthand, what they could do. And he's just, when he finally decides to get into the fold and fight, wow. I mean, wow. The technology that he uses against Icarus, that is one of my highlights of the whole action in the entire movie. And we get a lot of cool fighting with deviants, but that is just something so cool that I was not expecting. And basically using his own power, like the more he uses his power, the more, because you could see him trying to use his heat vision and it literally running out, going back into it, almost like the stream running back into his eyes. It was great character, and I just love the family motivations and all the comedy with his family and the Eternals. Every bit of it worked for me, whether it be smashing the table or the babysitting thing with Thena afterwards. Every single thing with his family and their interaction with Eternals, that all worked for me. Like, it was great.
Tony.
Loved what we saw, as you guys were saying, like loved the visual aid from what his powers alone. I want to see him working side by side with either Bruce Banner or somebody else in the MCU, like someone like small, like just using it, maybe Shuri, somebody, because I think that'd be a great duo. For what we got with him, because going to the movies, we did know that somebody was going to be a part of the LGBT community, and I was surprised it was him because at first I thought it was. I thought I saw somewhere it was a girl, so that's why it caught me off guard. But I will say, his husband, just the relationship that they showed was great, especially when he's trying to say, I should stay with my family. He was able to convince him, you should go be with your family. The moment that they had, a lot of great moments they had in the movies was when you just see a eternal interacting with another human to a whole nother level. Most of the Eternals in general, the dialogues work. His mainly.
Clay, what you think?
I wouldn't say he is. I would say he is my second favorite. First favorite. I mean, I'm a huge Superman fan, so I have to choose the only Superman that's in this movie. But Fastos, I loved all the comedy. I think the plow and the steam engine really got me. That was such a great joke. And especially for, again, somebody who thrives on being able to create. That is his thing. And the idea that, even as Erisham said, like these Eternals, the whole purpose of them, yes, they defend off the deviants, but they help the humans flourish and evolve so that way the Celestials can come about. So people getting upset that, like, oh, all of life came from the Eternals, they're immortal. So why wouldn't you think that they are, not so important? Like, I think that's a really dumb idea and a dumb complaint. If, like, oh, I guess my cell phone is created because of Fastos. I can never look at my phone the same again. Oh no. Like, it doesn't hurt anything,
Mm-hmm.
I will have to agree with Travis as well. I didn't know where they were going to go with his powers for fighting. As soon as he had these like wrist blaster things going on, the very first time you see him fighting, I was like, holy crap, that is awesome. But the creative mind that he has to be able to go from the wrists to the small little like flying bombs that he threw at Icarus, to like, he was very quick with everything that he pulled out to fight, and I thought that was really, really cool. Nerds can be effective in battle too. I think that was really cool. But Brent, you went on to the one thing that I really wanted to talk about in this review. I said in our Shang-Chi review, I said we will see Wenwu in this movie. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't. It didn't hurt the movie whatsoever. I thought we were going to get some sort of something. And then for me, whenever they were talking about like the hive mind or whatever, the unimind that they called it, they used rings. And I was like, this is present day. Why are the rings being made in present day? And then when Wu's going to have them in the past, like how is that connecting? What's going on? Again, I don't think it will be the same rings that
They're
they
not
use.
the same rings. They
Yeah,
already
they're not.
they look very different. They're not the same rings.
But I like, because of the post-credit scene from Shang-Chi and just the technology in here, I'm just like, come on, show me that connective tissue. And I didn't unfortunately get it as far as just to Shang-Chi, but it's still there. We all know, like, this is clearly eternal technology.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get it eventually. But Fastos and his family, I really enjoyed the moments of like, oh, you're Superman. Like, No, I saw you on TV, man. You were flying. You had your little your heat vision, like, and your cape. And Icarus just saying, I don't wear a cape. I don't wear a cape. I will say this also. That is 2 references to the 2 big DC films as a co-host of the DC show. That was fine. And not saying that, like, because I've seen the sentiment that it was 2 references too much.
Would you call it aggressive?
Because I've seen that also. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know why people are saying, like, again, we've seen it, like, the CW, but we've seen the CW shows reference Marvel. Cisco talking about the Hulk and the Avengers and Spider-Man, and
That's okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and call him out. Snell says that the reason why you can't do it is because it ruins the potential for a crossover.
No,
there
it
is
doesn't.
there is no freaking meetings right now for Feige and
No.
Hamada saying, "Hey, I think we really need to do an Avengers versus Justice League movie right now."
If you want to say that about anything, it'd be the Star Wars references. There's the Star Wars book in this. There's the Star Wars stuff in Spider-Man Homecoming. There's the reference in Civil War. Like that, those maybe, but not Superman, not Batman.
Yeah, no, like I'm sorry. I'm gonna call you out, Snell. And that's a really horrible way of thinking that, oh, DC references makes this movie even worse. It's silly. I felt that. And he's a child. So, like, I guess there isn't really, other than Thor, there is no male superhero on the level of that would be flying and shooting laser beams from his face. So, of course, you need to have something a little bit more relatable. Superman.
If anything, would somebody care about a comic book character like Superman in a world where Thor is real? Like, if anything, to me, that would be the hang up. If you really want to have a hang up, that's the angle. I have Captain America. Why do I care about this made up person in the comics?
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everyone's kind of said most of what I've thought of Fastos. I love the family aspect. I love the, picking Hiroshima as a moment for him to kind of say, I can't be around these people. I can't. They took what I did and turned it into something perverse and killing each other with it, and him stepping away to be, find something that makes him truly happy and truly brings him back to seeing the good of humanity and wanting them to be saved. Frank saying that Zhao seems like DC. She even has DC stuff on her Instagram page. Yeah, again, it's not meant to be a knock. It's meant to just have some fun at that point. And again, his son is really
brought the DC universe into the MCU, guys.
Yes,
just
exactly.
so you know.
So again, Fastos, as I said
can I ask one
before.
question. Wait, does Snell? I'm trying to understand this. Does he think that the crossover can't happen because there were 2 jokes made in Eternals?
He said the references to Superman and Batman don't work because it would be like it kind of, I forgot the exact wording, but he said in some reference it destroys the idea of like a potential crossover.
There's so many other loopholes they would have to jump, even to explain it story-wise, that I don't think 2 jokes about these 2 characters, that's the least. I don't think anyone's going to remember that and be like, oh, you can't tell these stories because you made a joke about these characters being fictional back in the Eternals. Oh, well, okay. Thank you for clearing that up, Clay. Sorry, Chris. I really needed to know that because I was getting really confused. Really? I don't see it being that big of a problem.
Yeah. So, Brent, any final thoughts on Fastos?
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay. All right. The next kind of couple will kind of pair these next 2 because they were paired together in the film. Athena played by Angelina Jolie and Gilgamesh played by Ma Dong-seok. Who wants to take that one? I'll throw that up for grabs.
I will take that one. A little disappointed that Athena was not in here a little more. As I was kind of talking this movie up to Abby to get her excited to even watch it, she did make the joke once we were talking about the controversy over the Rotten Tomato score. She was like, "Oh wait, isn't Angelina Jolie in this movie? Is that why it's that bad?" And I was like, "Oh Jesus, okay." But she wasn't in the movie that much, and I will say again with this controversy, kind of everybody attempting to tear it apart, doesn't change my view of this movie whatsoever. People were knocking some of her action scenes being like horrible CGI on a phone or a computer screen as just a repeating GIF. Yeah, it looks bad and pixelated. On an IMAX screen, it looked great. Like I did not have any problems with the scenes that I was seeing on Twitter. People were complaining about that were in the trailers in this movie. But I do like the idea because the big reveal is these aren't just an alien species. They are alien robots that are programmed and have their memories wiped. And just because of a glitch in the system, Thena's memories were not completely wiped when they went to Earth. And because of that, it kind of like made her malfunction. And that was a very interesting take on everything that was going on. You also had to deal with that. It did make her kind of like the shunned individual of Eternals. But I really do like that Gilgamesh was there for her, and it was like, hey, I will watch over her. Clearly because he was the brute out of everybody and was like, hey, I'm probably the only one that could take her down anyway in case she does go mad. And that's exactly what happened in the flashback, which we haven't really been talking about, the non-linear storytelling. Tony, you know this because I say it plenty of times. Travis and Chris, I don't necessarily like a whole lot of non-linear storytelling, especially in comic books. This played out very, very well. I felt like the non-linear storytelling going back and forth between present. I think there was one or two times that I felt it was not very clear until like clearly like 2 minutes into it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is in the past. But I felt those were very, very strong in that scene where we see Thena malfunction for the first time. Visually, I thought it was great. Gilgamesh knocking her the hell out and putting her on her ass. And then, them having this and very important meeting, which they bring something up that I thought was going to happen at the very end of the movie. But we'll get to that character when we get there. I think it was Ajax that said, hey, because of this madness, we have to reset you to factory settings, basically. And that would mean that she would lose her identity, or that's how she saw it, Thena. And then that's when Gilgamesh was like, no, like, let her keep her memories. I will watch over her. I will make sure she is not a threat to the world and or any of us. I did want to explore her a little bit more, but she was able to be a badass throughout the times that we saw her. And I think it's Kirkland and Travis that were kind of like not really great with her as far as like, okay, she said she's all better when she had that fight with the, like, I can't even remember his name or if they even shared it. Crow. The alpha deviant, I was calling him before I knew his name. After she killed him, she was apparently better. And then at the very end of the film, she was like sticking her hand in like a toaster. And she's like, oh, sometimes I forget. What people don't understand is she was like away from civilization because of her condition. And Gilgamesh didn't bring her closer to civilization for that reason. They didn't have any electronics or anything like that. So I think that is why she is confused about her environment, because all of this is still new to her.
Right.
So like her sticking her hand in the toaster, funny, and people were thinking, well, that's weird. Well, it's because of that instance, because of how she has spent the rest of the however many thousands of years in Australia, secluded from everybody else.
I also thought that they made a point, like Crow had her and like did the energy sucking thing that we had already seen done to both Ajax and Gilgamesh, taking on traits from the person. Now there, it was taking their powers. Here, it took the mind wary, or however they were pronouncing it. At least that's how I took it. It was like it seemed to take that because she still had her powers. She didn't die. Unfortunately, not a lot to say about either character. I liked them both. Visually, they were both awesome. They didn't have a lot to do, really. But they were awesome looking. I'm glad that Tina is still around. I'd love to see her again. But she had that one awesome moment where Icarus is like, "You can't beat me," and she says something along the lines of, "Well, I've always wanted to try." I was like, "Great moment."
That was a
for
great
her.
line.
And I would have liked more of them, but that's just a byproduct of having 10 Eternals plus Dane plus Crow plus all the Deviants plus it's just a massive cast.
Mm-hmm. I like the going back and forth because it plays into later on in the end credits with she's holding Excalibur and what I can't remember which one says it, that Sprite says like, oh well, he had a thing for you at that point. She really is, the scenes we do get to see her fight, very much well done, and showed that she is a very tactical fighter at that point, while Gilgamesh is like you said, the strength. But I like that the quote unquote brute strength is the one taking care of Athena in the end. At that point, they were very perfectly matched, and I definitely could totally believe that they would be together till the end.
I love how he says that to her too, Chris, just before he does die. I would do it again.
Yep.
In any world, any life, and that's a great moment between them just before he ends. And I gotta say, I enjoyed the characters, but like you all said, I wish we got more with them. I did really enjoy that the sickness was the thing that we thought was bad, but ultimately it was a warning that could have been heeded, and maybe would have stopped this whole thing altogether. So it was pretty interesting using it that way, and I did enjoy the fighting. I didn't understand the bad CGI or anything like that. I thought it was great. Like Clay said, it must be just for GIFs and stuff. But like I said, enjoyed her fighting and enjoyed the powers of both of them. So it was great. Just wish we could see more. I'm excited to see her go off with the other two and basically play hero. So play rescue. So I'm interested to see how that goes.
Tony, I want to throw two other kind of pairings that we kind of saw more towards the end at that point being paired together. Druid and Makari. Druid played by Barry Conahan, and Makari played by Lauren Ridloff, who is in real life deaf.
Druid is probably tie with my favorite one. Just he comes off a bit of an asshole. That's one thing I love about him. His lines were great. I thought he was going to die by Icarus towards the end of it. I thought Icarus has enough of him, trying to kill him off. I'm glad that he's not dead. And their relationship was so well done. Because unlike the love that Sprite has for Icarus, we actually see their relationship in the past. We see it build up. Even when they have little secrets, we see it slowly getting there. I was a bit surprised. So when we see him again in the present, so what's his deal? Like, did he did he capture those people and hold them against their will there?
Control, basically.
So almost like Wanda a bit.
Because like in the court. Yeah, and the Cortez thing, he wanted to control like them all, and that's where he's like, I can control the world and do this. And so it's almost like he's had a kind of change in heart, but not really taking on the world, but maybe just focusing on bettering a group of people just by taking over their minds. So it's kind of like one toe in, one toe out.
And for how do you put that? Makari. I enjoyed the scenes we got with her. I do wish we got more scenes with her because I love where her heart is at. Like it's just so kind, friendly, spirited, and like just with her heart and the kind that person he kind of is, they balance each other's out. That those two, when we see them again, I want them at least be side by side. I want to see that duo once more.
I thought Druid was he's the character that I had pegged as like the Maximus of the Inhumans. Like I thought for sure like he was going to be the one who turned. It would be him who betrayed the team, right? And not that way at all. I thought they did a really good job with him. All in the game was he ever punished for interfering in that war in the past? Not that we saw.
He walked
Not that
away.
we
That was
saw.
when he left, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you want to call that the punishment, maybe. But other than that, I don't know. Makari, visually, her powers were incredible. I love the speed effects in this. I wish we'd gotten more of them. I really liked her. She had like a charm to her character, and we just didn't see very much of it. Again, it's I'm repeating myself, but there's just so many people. We just didn't get to spend that much time with her. I hopefully we get to see her again. Eternals will return, right? So presumably we will. And the cast is a little bit smaller now. They're down a few members. Maybe that'll help if they don't expand too much. But visually, her powers are just awesome to watch.
Yeah, I love the sarcasm between both of them. They were when they came to present day, they worked very well off each other, especially Makari. I just the communicate her visual expressions on her face at that point, the snide looks, the comments that she was making to the team. She was a scene stealer for me whenever she was on screen, especially when they discover her on the ship and she's stolen a bunch of stuff and just reading up on everything, just chilling there. That was great.
I love the fact that she did take all that stuff because it was shown in the very beginning of the movie that she had kind of that like that those itchy fingers, to take that stuff. But to be completely honest, I love her theme. As soon as I believe when she starts to run to find out where the Celestial is emerging from, and then also when she fights Icarus, her theme comes up, and it starts off with this like really heavy metal riff, and it's just great. I absolutely loved it. But Brent, thank you for reminding me the name, because throughout the entire flashback with Druid, I was like, who is that Eternals guy? I mean, who is that Inhumans guy? Like, this is clearly him. This is him. Like, I know that this guy is basically the foundation of the Inhumans, basically. But he gave that kind of vibe throughout the entire film. And again, gonna keep poking Snow until I kick his ass tomorrow. But the idea of these people, they just changed with the line. These people have lived for 7,000 years. They have lived life. Do you want a 7,000 year movie? Because you were complaining about how long this movie already was, and you want more time to complain? Like, you got to take what we got. And with the idea of, why didn't he take over the world? He found humanity. You clearly saw that when he had a small group of individuals hidden within the Amazon. Like, he found a group of individuals that he could live with and say, hey, I care about these people. And so he's going to protect them. He used them to defend themselves and do like he did on a much smaller scale what he was planning on, what he felt like he was going to do in the past. And it makes sense. It makes sense to live for 7,000 years and to see compassion grow among the life of humans. So I really enjoyed his snarkiness. Anthony, I think you are right. The persona of the asshole really works for him. When he joins, when we first see him in present day, and he is not all gung-ho and joining them. He says, "Oh, I just learned that my entire life was a sham. Sorry that I don't care about your mission right now." Like, these Eternals are, like I said before, they're the robots basically learning that these are aliens learning that they are robots that had like basically no free will in a sense, and learning that they could have just lived life without these missions and everything else. And, all the fighting and bickering that they had in the past were for nothing, basically, in some sense of their minds. Of course, Icarus was the one that was really like, hey, I am programmed to do this, so I will do this. But I really enjoyed Druid. And I will say the one flaw in a lot of these Eternals, they weren't like, some of them, like Druid and unfortunately Sprite, are not really like offensive as far as their powers. Because Druid, yeah, he could control people to fight for him, but then when he went hand to hand with that deviant, like, I was like, what is this guy gonna do?
I kind of like that. I think it makes them be more creative. Not everybody is, Icarus.
It makes them depend on the team that they are, or the family that they have. That is very true.
It's like they're a video game raiding party or something. They had like the healer and Ajax, and they had the tank and Icarus, and so on.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not wrong. But I did enjoy, like, one of his last lines in this film was knocking the crap out of Sprite, and it was just like, yeah, I can't do this. You need to do this on your own. Giving encouragement to Circe, who was very conflicted in that last third act. So really, really cool.
Travis, do you have any comments before I throw the last two your way?
I'll just talk about Druid for a second, and that is, I really enjoyed his speech to Ajax in the past when the war was going on about, when you can control people's minds and stop them from doing like wars and fighting, and you don't do that, what that does to somebody after 5 centuries. I thought that was a very great line, and I thought he was very well done in film. He's conflicted, but ultimately chooses to help Kingo. Take a look at that, and I enjoy that. And Carrie, I would have wanted more from her. I didn't think we got enough. I enjoyed what we got. I wish we got more, and we will get that. Like Brent said, the Eternals are scheduled to return. The Eternals will return, is what they said. So, and they're setting us up for that. So I look to see more from both of them. Like you said, Chris, they're kind of winding down in the amount of Eternals we have right now. So we'll probably get more exposition on those characters.
All right, our last two protagonists before we take our ad break to transition into our antagonists. Travis, why don't you lead us off with Ajax, played by Selma Hayek, and Dane Whitman, played by Kit Harrington.
I was surprised that Ajax died, first off. Was not expecting that. And knew there was something different because we didn't see her die. We just came upon it, and there was nothing. There was no indication. So I knew that it was kind of mysterious, but I love that ultimately she found Earth to be something special compared to, like, she's on this planet for over a million years, she says. So I liked her, but like I said, we didn't get as much with her before she died, but ultimately that was going to bring that was the only thing that was going to bring the Eternals back together. So I liked her, but I don't know how we're going to see more of her. Maybe there's more copies of her on the world where they were made, or the area that they were made. So I would love to see more of her, and I would love for them to get the shock of meeting another copy of her that doesn't have any of the memories of interacting with them.
Yeah.
And Kit Harrington, same thing. Not much about him. I really enjoyed his Doctor Strange joke. and wanting her to make him a giraffe. I thought that was great. And that post-credit scene, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. That is essentially what he was put in for. Not really, but that was the most that I thought about him, was the post-credit scene.
Anyone have any thoughts on those two, our last two?
I just want to say that I was a little disappointed that Salma Hayek died in this movie. She is the bigger name. She is the draw for a lot of people to go see the Eternals. I think that is very true, as well as Angelina Jolie. But the one thing that kind of messed me up through this film was the scene from the trailer. The scene giving the breakdown to Icarus about Thanos, about having 7 days to do this, like throughout the entire film. I'm like, where are we gonna get this? Where are we gonna get the scene? Where are we gonna get this scene? Where is Ajax? And seeing that she died, I was like, they cut that scene. They cut the scene. They just did that for the trailer, just so you can have the name of Thanos for people to say, oh, it's connected to the MCU. And I started to get upset. And then we got the scene.
And all was right in the world.
And all was right in the world. And it was very conflicting, because after this, we're about to talk about my favorite character. It was very conflicting, that scene. So I enjoyed her being here. I do like that she very clearly saw who the right person was to take over as team leader. And again, she was in another character, just like everybody else, who through living life on her own saw humanity. And I think the big takeaway from this was, as a team, they were focused on the mission. But when they had time to themselves, they saw exactly what Circe was able to see all along. And I think that's more important to them living their lives. I think that is the most important thing that you get from this, is that, okay, we were on a mission. It's clearly not going as well. And as what Ajax said in that flashback was, hey, deviants are gone. We're good. Our mission is over. We will just see what happens until Eshrem calls us, and we'll be good to go. So I do like that all of these Eternals were able to come to the same conclusion, Ajax including. So I really enjoyed her. As far as Kit Harrington, a lot of people are saying that all they saw was Jon Snow. I've only seen the series finale of Game of Thrones. I haven't seen anything else except for the very last episode. So I have no connection to. So
interesting tactic there, Clay.
Yeah, it saves me from having to watch the entire thing.
When my mom reads a book, she reads the last chapter first to decide if she wants to read the Is that a strategy you're taking with this book? I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I didn't have a problem.
So
That's not strong.
For me, I knew that I know as soon as we see what he is going to become, and like we said, we're going to talk about it later. It may be a little on the nose, but until then, I'm enjoying his character. Something that I will agree with Snell is how easy he took the news of them being alien Eternals, because you live in a world that for 15 years there have been superheroes. So learning that somebody in your life has powers, okay, thinking of you a little differently, but not too much from what I've still known you to be. I felt that was very appropriate in this world. I do kind of like how Sprite was telling him all of these stories and he didn't believe them because, of course, like, this is just some little kid telling fantasy stories. And then the deviant pops up. He's like, I thought you killed them all. You know, like I really enjoyed that line. But it's very interesting that that he was put into this film compared to some of the stuff that we're getting in the future of the MCU. That's how I feel. But I think it still was nice, you know, to at least put somebody that is going to move forward as well as the Eternals.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we take our ad break from these two?
Yeah. For Kit, once I feel like he was too much in the marketing because I feel like I seen him with the interviews. I think I've seen like a poster with him on it. One thing I hate is I feel like he wasn't like enough in the movie to be in a poster or to get this much interview time. I hate when movies do that. Into the Woods, they market the crap out of Johnny Depp, and he was in it for like 5 minutes at most. So I do wish we got at least a little bit more from him. I enjoy the scenes we got from him. I know that some people didn't like. Oh, it felt forced how he was now the black. And I'm like, it didn't feel like kind of forced that much.
Yeah, it's all in the games and Die and Dune. Yeah, same thing.
Oh, good thing I haven't seen the movie yet. I am curious to see where they're going to take the character later on, only because I've only read him in the King in Black event, so I am curious to see all about his background of his history. And for Ajax, I read curious about it. Like they didn't do anything. I didn't feel sad, but when she died, I was like, okay, move on.
You know, I thought Dane Whitman, he was, Kit Harrington was fine as Dane Whitman. He really was just in it to be introduced a little bit, just a little bit of a tease for the future. I thought he accomplished that. So mission accomplished there. He's not an Eternal, so he shouldn't have too big a spotlight, though. It was kind of funny because he's got, you know, some sort of relationship with immortality in the comics, and it was just funny when they're like, well, you know, he's going to grow old and die. It's like, is he? We'll find out. But as far as Ajax goes, again, it was tell, don't show. She's helped the Celestials for millions of years. Something about Earth changed her. Well, they told us, they just didn't show anything with her. I was really surprised when they killed her, but at the same time, it's like, oh, well, she was still in quite a bit of the movie. I mean, maybe not quite a bit, but she still had several scenes after that, just all in the past. And I like the way they did the flashbacks. You know, to me, it was very Lost style, where you had your public and whatever the present day, and whatever the president was about to focus on, we got that person's flashback to find out kind of a little bit more about what they've been doing. And that's what Lost was like. It was the same. So I don't know. Again, like she would. If you told me she was barely a character, I'd be hard pressed to argue with you because we really didn't see that much of her. She had healing powers. She was the prime Eternal. Okay. What else about her? Like, what was it about Earth that made her change after millions of years? And because she apparently has the memory of her past lives. They said it. She said it. She'd been doing it or she was programmed with those memories, maybe. But regardless, her brain told her she had millions of years of experience. What made her change? I believe it can. There's always something about Earth. They just didn't show us any of it.
Well, I think that what she kind of hinted at was the idea of the snap bringing the humans brought everyone back in an instant. At that point, I think it kind of showed it. It's a moment that showed her that they're willing to put others in front of them at that point and bring everyone back.
Planetary and species cred
but
across
also,
the galaxy.
Is her being able to keep her memories the I guess
Prime
the
Eternal
reward for being the Prime Eternal?
Could be. I wouldn't know. Can't say that.
You have that's the reward for following his every wish. Because clearly, when you don't, he just up and hauls you out of there when he wants.
Yep. So, all right, let's take that ad break before I get yelled at by our overlords. All right, so listeners, you know the drill. You know the drill. Here come the ads. Helps pay for our network. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, so we have a very much smaller list of antagonists and some interesting, some like, oh, that was an antagonist. So we'll start. I I know Clay's been jumping at it. He said it's his favorite character. I'm gonna have to at least let him start off at that point. Icarus, played by Richard Madden.
Superman, Superman, Superman. No, I really enjoyed his character because, of course, the Superman likeness of him. But I drew to his character whenever I've attempted to read Eternals. Now, from what I have seen in the small reading that I have done, this is a change to the character. Being that he would be he would be willing to fight other Eternals, as from what I have seen. That you guys may have a little bit more knowledge. I don't think he's ever been seen as evil or anything. So, which is why he's an antagonist and not a villain in this film. But I really enjoyed him. His appearance in the present, his very first appearance in the present, just like slamming the deviant into the buildings. I was like, what in the world was that? He kind of just comes in, shrugs the dust off his shoulders, and he's just a badass. I'm just like,
and
cool.
they didn't want to add the line "not impressed" because some people might have problems with that.
I love the snarkiness, like the whole thing with the IKEA table thing, and even right before that, he's like, "Oh, you haven't been using your powers. You haven't been using your powers," and then shooting the glass door, the sliding door, and it like just repels off of it. Like, he is willing to call people out on their crap. He's just like, "No, like, you're an Eternal. It's okay to be an Eternal. Like, that's who we are." And just some very small moments with everybody else in this film, because he had a moment with, I think, everybody. And I think that is on purpose to kind of, do a heel turn for when the twist actually happens. Which, oh man, I was so disappointed. Like, I was like, man, this is my Superman. Oh no, this is not my Superman. This is not my Superman at all. But to answer on the games question, just real quick, going back to Ajax, because I am talking about the twist. He says, where did the gun come from that she used when she died? It was with the people that the Deviants had killed, that Icarus had talked about like just a few seconds before.
Yeah, that's something I was looking at the second time I saw the movie. I was like, where was that gun? Because it was not on her. No, it was already down there.
No, it was already down there from the people who were living in that village or that town.
Worked on the oil miners or oil riggers.
Yeah, I think it was oil riggers. But I enjoyed his character. The fact that like he was really trying to manipulate Circe, like kind of dug under my skin now, knowing that he was doing that. Like, because he played it well. He was like, oh, I still have feelings for you. And then we see the flashbacks that are really showing that. And I do think that he truly did have those feelings. And then he was legit a robot. He was like, hey, I cannot deviate from my prime objective. And that is, we are going to help destroy this earth so the galaxy could live on, so this universe could live on. And we've seen both sides to how that is a good thing and how that is a bad thing. I can't fault him, but it just hurt me to see him willing to do what he did to his family, really. But at the very end, when he was like he was almost willing to take down Circe, and then he refused to do so. And then when he helped put the Celestial in marble, like he felt conflicted. He was like, hey, I don't know. Like, just his facial expressions and his acting said, hey, we did it, but I'm still unsure about myself. And then what a lot of people are saying is too on the nose. He flew too close to the sun at the very end of the movie. I will say, I didn't even think about that. I legit thought that because of what Ajax was saying to Athena in the flashback of like having a factory reset, I thought that he was thinking, hey, if I run into the sun, maybe I'll have a factory reset. And I won't remember any of this stuff because it hurt him too much. That's what I thought when that was happening. So, like everybody else saying, "Oh, it's Icarus flying too close to the sun," I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that kind of is on the nose." But I mean, not exactly
it is,
what I was going on.
They called that out earlier as specifically a story that Sprite told.
Yeah.
Like they said earlier, like I actually think if they don't have the line about Sprite telling the story, that it is too on the nose. But because they did, and I mean, I guess, but he flew into the sun. I'm not convinced he's dead. I mean, he had power. That guy was by far the most powerful. I don't know that nothing. He could be alive, and I kind of hope he is. I want to see Thor smack him around a little bit, but I'm not convinced.
Oh, did we miss the line that that Kingo and Thor grew up together, quote unquote, grew up together, and they were hanging out?
Oh, that was in the movie?
Yeah, that was around the dinner table at that point. Like, you know, and her and Sprite were referring to Captain Rogers at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very interesting stuff. So they did throw some stuff to connect it. But we were talking about are we just talking about Icarus or are we going to
we're just talking about Icarus and then we can leave because the other two is just I don't think we're gonna have too much to say.
Yeah.
So
but Icarus was a complicated character. As much as there's some people out there who probably want to say that he is one note, I do think that there is a lot of complications, a lot near the end in the third act, for sure. So I really enjoyed him. I hope that we see more of him. I hope he didn't fly too close to the sun to the fact that he is dead.
Yeah,
but,
we didn't see a body, so
exactly.
Anyone else have thoughts on Icarus, our surprise antagonist?
I thought he was a little stiff for most of the movie, like from an acting performance. I was like, it just didn't feel like he
pulled off his best Henry Cavill. Okay,
I don't know if I would agree with that actually, but
I don't agree with that at all.
No, I'm just poking fun at everybody.
He hasn't taken the humanity like the rest of them have.
That might be a great that would make a lot of sense.
That is very, very good, Trev. I like that idea.
He hasn't. He left himself removed. And then, of course, when we saw him back in the present day, as we talked about earlier, he had the whole awkward ex-husband thing or whatever it was. We got glimpses of it. We got moments of it. The pain that he felt when he killed Ajax, right? Like, because he still didn't want to do it. He did it because he thought it was the right thing to do, but he didn't want to do it. And so it's like we got glimpses of it. I just didn't see that much of an acting performance from him. I'm not familiar with him. Again, I haven't seen Game of Thrones. I don't know what else he's been in. But his powers were awesome. It was fun to watch him, shoot the whatever. I'm going to call it heat vision, but whatever he calls it, the laser eyes. I was curious a few times of like the extent of his powers. Like, does he have more than the heat vision and presumably the super strength and stuff? How close does he get to Superman in this, if you will? But I would not be upset if we saw him again. If we do, I don't think he'll be a villain.
Yeah, I don't either.
I loved him flying into the sun. I loved his scream afterwards, essentially realizing like I killed the Ajax for nothing. And it just worked for me. And like Brent said, I thought he was dead, but after thinking about it a little bit, I don't know. Like he's very powerful, so maybe this just charged him up even more. So I'm hoping that he comes in to help them out at the end, or in the next.
We're going full Superman now.
The thing is,
Superman,
with what they did with him, they can have both ways. He could be dead. He could truly be dead, and it's fine and it fits. Or he could come back. Like they left the door open if they want it They don't have to take it. So
You could
presumably,
do both Thors.
I mean, they could. There's 10 Eternals in this movie, and we have 3 groups of 3. And then Sprite, who became human, and one of those groups of 3 is the dead ones: Ajak, Gilgamesh, and presumably Icarus.
Yeah, Tony, you were trying to get in on there earlier.
I feel like for most of the movie, he did feel a little bit stiff. That's why, like, he had like a few lines that made him seem more like laughable, more like he was having a good time. But other than that, his heel turn didn't seem that surprising to me. Like, okay, sure, because you're more serious, more business. Even in the past, when one night they're all having a little party, so you could see his slight smile, but then more of like business per se. That's why, like, when he turned somewhat bad guy, like, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Makes sense that 1 out of you 10 is a not such with everybody else. Makes sense.
Yeah, I was surprised when the turn happened at that point. When they started to kind of look at that, I was like, he's not seeming all the up and up. And when it finally gets revealed about it, I was like, oh, okay, I can, it's obviously, as we said, a big shift from what the comics were, but it works for what the character was going through as. And like I said, Travis, that's great in the sense of he didn't fall into the humanity. He was in his role. He had his purpose, and he viewed his own idea of what an Eternal was. I'm above it all. I rule, and I know what I need to do. So, it was interesting seeing that third act. I think that's when I started really more getting into the character than the previous 2 acts of it. I just wasn't feeling his character too much at all until that turn happened. I was like, okay, maybe seeing the movie again, I will appreciate his character a lot more knowing that going in. So, our last 2 antagonists, I'll start off on this one. Arishem the Judge and Crow, who's played by Bill Skarsgård. I'm going to say Crow, forgettable. Just the deviants, in all honesty, were just absolutely forgettable, and it just, I didn't feel anything for him. I think Crow was so thrown in. It just seemed like, oh, he's mutating and turning. Oh, okay, he's doing what he needs to do, and Arishem just was the big overlord of the Judge, Celestial at that point, the creator that was always the big hulking thing lurking in the background behind the scenes, the wizard behind the curtain at that point. But I'd say Crow was just absolutely forgettable and could have done without it.
As a character, I would agree. Visually, I really like the Deviants. I thought they made good.
I could agree with that.
Good
visually,
villains, good cannon fodder for fights. When you just want a bunch of mindless beasts to look badass against. Like, I thought they achieved that. I like the different types of Deviants, but as a character, sure, I'm with you. And then Arishem, just stunning. Like, seeing him and the scale of this character, I feel like we got our first hints of what a Galactus could look like.
Yes,
towering over the Earth.
Oh
and
my gosh,
that would be awesome.
The history scene when he told Circe, what was up, I really, really liked. He was interesting to me. I liked him quite a bit. But Crow was good for the cannon fodder, which is about all he was. Arishem was much more intriguing, but obviously not a physical opponent throughout the movie.
I like it. All in Games says, can we agree that CGI monster villains are hard to make work as compelling villains?
Sure.
Were you saying that about Thanos?
I had that thought, but I'm guessing. Game, tell us, but I'm going to guess he means more like the Outriders.
Yeah, I like what you're saying with the Celestial at that point. Our first kind of big hint of what a Galactus could be, and the booming voice of what we don't see the Arishem do any movements necessarily in a sense of fighting or do anything like this. His awe-inspiring power, is what should be feared.
Yeah, David Kay is the voice of Arishem. He does a lot of the. He is actually Marvel Legacy in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. He has been in I believe, where was it? I was just looking at it earlier. Marvel's Avengers Assemble. So he was also in the Guardians of the Galaxy TV show as well. So, he is technically a legacy casting there. But I loved his booming voice. Like you said, not a whole lot of acting for this giant celestial. But as far as Crow, I do feel like there was some sort of cutting of his story from the moment he killed Gilgamesh to the moment we see him on the island with the volcano where the celestial is being born. Because there's just it's very odd, for him to. I genuinely felt that when he was coming up to the island, that they were for once going to work with him, but
Same.
then he still kept fighting them, and I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. Like, as much as you're wanting to evolve now that you've tasted the power of an eternal, like, your whole point is to live, and they are giving you that moment. And I mean, I don't know how well the conversation would have gone between the Eternals and him to be like, hey, we're on the same side. Maybe it can be temporary. Maybe it can be for a long term. Who knows? But his ending, the only satisfying thing was that Athena had the final blow, to be honest. So
For the whole Crow, even for Icarus, it felt too much like Captain Marvel a bit, where like later on we find out that main good guys supposed to be rooting for somewhat kind of bad. So it threw me off when out of nowhere Crow is like, it still want to fight them even though they want to go against their own rules as well. But for Airstrom, he did nothing for me at all. Even at the end, I'm like, oh, please don't end the movie like this at all. I kind of wish maybe that was a post-credit scene instead, when he just takes them all, like, threatens, like, your memories will say they live or die. I'm like, okay, this could have waited at least until the after credits. This, just leave it for now. Did nothing.
Any thoughts before we take our last ad break and head to end credit scenes that we've all been biting at to talk about? All right, here we're gonna go. So, all right, so final ad break before we head to end credits. Everyone, hopefully the ads are entertaining. If they're not, turn that volume down, and we'll be right back. All right, so we have not just one but two end credits. Chloe Zhao had said that there would be. This has been out there for a bit during one of her interviews, that there'd be two end credit scenes. So our first is in the mid credits. We get Athena, Makari, and Druid are visited by are like on the ship. They haven't heard from their eternal brethren from Earth in a number. Was it weeks? They said. Think of a number of weeks.
Yeah, they said weeks.
Yeah. And so they start, Athena starts, sensing something's wrong on the ship and starts getting ready to fight. And out comes from a portal this small little troll who is known as, in the comics, Pip the Troll. And
they did Pip the Troll.
Voiced by, a legacy, a fan of all fans at that point, Patton Oswalt. MODOK. Patton Oswalt voicing Pip the Troll, and followed by his main person at that point, Eros, aka the Knave of Hearts, Star Fox, and who basically says, my eternal brethren, I'm here to help. Let's go get our people back. So, there's a lot to unpack here, and Eros played by the one that was leaked so much. Thank you, Variety.
I never got spoiled on it. I made it
same.
Neither did I.
No, I just saw Harry Styles, and that's about it. I didn't know what it was about at that point. Moved on. So So that is who he is playing, Eros. There's a lot to unpack just in this one thing. We've got, Pip the Troll. Who the heck is Pip the Troll? And he's a prince, an alien prince that was basically last in line for the throne. We're talking like 260 down the line. He partied one night with a lot of trolls and became a troll. He is directly tied in the comics to Adam Warlock as his sidekick. At one point, Adam, Pip, and Gamora are in the Soul World, which is the pocket dimension for the Soul Stone, which Adam Warlock is one to yield. So we will kind of see exactly. He's directly tied to that, and will we see Pip next in? Will he meet his eventual sidekick or him becoming the sidekick of Adam Warlock? But Eros is even more fascinating. He is called out as the brother of Thanos. His power in the comics is literally, besides other things, to stimulate the pleasure center of people's brain to make them fall in love with him. He has literally hooked up with more people in the Marvel Universe, from She-Hulk to Tigra. I found out there was a recent storyline where basically he was put on trial for his power, basically looking at it. You're basically raping people.
Ooh.
And it was later found out that Thanos was the one controlling him to do this. So everything's okay, I guess, at that point. But he was... It's very interesting. We have a brother of Thanos. I mean, this first end credit scene, what are y'all thoughts about this?
I will go ahead and say this was not spoiled for me whatsoever. No name, no nothing. When you first see this figure in the shadows, I'm like, okay, who could this be? It's got to be another Eternal. Who is it? And then I forgot his name because all I saw was Harry Styles. Mm-hmm. It took me right out of the film. And even Abby, who of course did not have a great experience watching the movie, looked at me and said, after that credit scene, she said, I don't care who anybody calls him, that is Harry Styles. And that's how I felt. And the weird thing of me thinking this is, put Harry Styles next to Josh Brolin Thanos. It's weird.
Have you seen Star Fox in the comics?
Yeah. No, like I have.
Look him up. It's actually like visually, it's good casting.
It's very much spot on at that point, but it gets into this whole idea of if he's an Eternal, how does that work necessarily? Because sometimes Thanos in the comics, Thanos is looked at, is thought to be a deviant, and is a deviant.
I thought he was an Eternal with a deviant gene or something like that.
Yeah, stepbrother at that point. So, what was going on with that? That's going to be interesting to delve into that.
Yeah, I these are not characters I expected to see. As soon as I saw the troll, I was like, I cannot believe there's no way this is Pip the Troll. Sure enough, it's Pip the Troll. And then Star Fox. I kind of expected them to bring in Thane and just kind of, Thane is Thanos' son, and just kind of do the MCU thing of playing with the characters and make him the brother. No, they went full Star Fox with it. I never saw any of the spoilers. I didn't even know. I saw him and I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. Oh, I had to be told later it was Harry Styles of
who?
One Direction or whatever. Yeah, who exactly? Cool. I mean, cool. I'm curious what they do with it. Are they going to emulate the She-Hulk story where he's on trial somehow? I doubt it, but if they do, well, you got my attention. Let's see what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, just like how you guys, I was not spoiled, thankfully. I don't know what Harry Styles looked like until I was listening to Snell giving the review, like, oh, that's Harry Styles. Good. I was kind of surprised that I wasn't spoiled at all on Twitter. I honestly thought that would have been all over Twitter as of last night from today, or even on Facebook, but thankfully it was not. But for that credit scene, I don't know anything about those characters except for Star Fox was in Diane Kate's Guardians of the Galaxy run. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the only thing I know him from. Other than that, I don't know about Pippin. So I'm excited about actually watching other characters who I know nothing about.
Travis, you have any thoughts?
I'm in Tony's boat. I didn't know much about either of these characters, but I did enjoy it. It's nice for me to see characters that I don't have any clue about. This is what this movie is all about, essentially, for me, is getting to know characters that I had no clue about. And I gotta say, I'm interested. I wonder, because I did watch maybe it's from Guardians, maybe it's from some other Marvel movie, but him fighting Thanos. Uh, or Thanos fighting his brother, so I assume it was this guy. Anyway, I wonder, just makes me think, is there any chance Thanos will ever come back again? Multiverse. So that's one thing I got, and I'm interested to see his powers. So I can't wait to see him lead the Eternals into the place.
With his powers of love.
I don't know what I'm just. I don't know anything about what you guys are talking about, but being put on trial, it sounded really greasy, like bad. So I'm just interested.
They straight went hard into the Me Too thing, from what I understand, with that whole thing. So that orb that he's holding, a lot of theories been rolling around from it's the orb that, Ajax and then Circe used to speak to the Celestial. His father was ruler of Titan, so his father might be a prime eternal, so maybe it's that. Or I saw another theory going around. It's a reformed Infinity Stone, maybe the Soul Stone.
Ooh.
You can be used to locate any soul in the universe. Adam Warlock needs that Soul Stone. So
that's true.
It's out there. It's an interesting theory I've put out there. So that the post-credit scene that has stirred up a lot of stuff. So we get Dane Whitman kind of going back and forth, trying to get up the courage to open this box, this old chest he's inherited from his ancestors. Opens it up, this huge, long, black blade. And it is, if I can remember what was the quote? Death.
I was trying to remember it all day today. I can't remember.
Death is my reward. Death is my reward is carved in it in obviously a different language at that point. And a voice, he starts reaching for it, starts kind of the blade has some kind of movement itself. And there's a voice in the background that says, "Sure you want to do that?" And that voice was confirmed today. I couldn't believe what I was hearing when I heard it, and it was until I got the confirmation today. Chloe Zhao confirms that is Marshala Ali as Blade telling him. And I know we don't get to see him, which is frustrating within itself, but people who don't know about Black Knight, which is not many, the Ebony Blade, which is what it's called, just like Dane Whitman, has a very complicated history. Dane's uncle, who Circe kind of refers to, maybe you should make up with him, is a villain in the comics. But Dane Whitman is a descendant of Percival and or Galahad from the King Arthur legend. Athena makes King Arthur, as we've already talked about tonight, real in this universe.
Merlin, with the Excalibur. Yeah.
Excalibur, yeah. Merlin is said to have was the one who supposedly forged the ebony blade and said it could only be used by someone of pure of heart. Shocker, Merlin lied. It is actually can only be wielded by those with an impure heart. He forged the sword as a counterpart to Excalibur, and the sword seeks out those with an evil heart and enhances that and grants them longer life, but at a cost. Hence the quote, death is my reward. And so it's cursed Dane, and he has ditched it a number of times in the comics. That's why sometimes you see the Black Knight wielding a lightsaber, because I don't know any other way to say it's that. It has a connection recently in the comics because it was later found out that the Ebony Blade might have been forged by Dracula. In the comics, it was revealed that the one Dane Whitman has was not necessarily the one that Merlin forged. It was forged by Dracula. In the comics, he's part of a group called M13 fighting against supernatural villains. This is, he's fought with Blade with the Ebony Blade against vampires. So this is kind of also there. Also, the Ebony Blade is one that has been tied to Null from King in Black and Venom. So this is kind of wow. I did not see this coming for an end credit scene, but like we said with the Black Knight, this is interesting.
I really enjoyed this because I think we all knew that Kit was casted as the Black Knight. And I was also thinking, because correct me if I'm wrong, this whole thing with the Ebony Blade, through the history that you were talking about, like his lineage could have possibly been attached to that as well, correct?
Yes.
So throughout the movie, I was kind of thinking, oh, well, maybe there will be hints of it in the past, with showing a Black Knight there. But they didn't go that route. I think it's safe for them to not go that route because the movie is already kind of heavy to begin with. But having it there at the very end, just as a tease, because I'm pretty sure we know that Black Knight is also going to be in Invasion as well, right? The Disney Plus series.
I haven't even seen rumors that he was going to be in.
Yeah,
Same.
haven't heard much. All we just know is that there'll be more down the line. I like what All in Game says. Midnight Suns. Oh yes.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. I do feel like with the confirmation of this being Mahershala Ali, I did make the guess as soon as it happened because Abby was like, "Who was that?" I was like, "I'm pretty sure it was Mahershala Ali," because other people surrounding me were saying, "Oh, was that Nick Fury?" And I was like, I don't know if that would necessarily make sense with him being in space right now. So is this the case of what we saw in Venom? And this may take away more than what people enjoy from out of Eternals? Because out of everything that Snell was saying, he's like, oh, the movie's crap, but at least we have Mahershala Ali.
Not to the same level.
My theater didn't cheer and audibly gasp like they did at the last.
Right, because it wasn't clear who it was, because I questioned, is it Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah.
And it wasn't. Obviously, we know who it was. It's awesome they did that, but no, not to the same level, because I'm sorry, Blade and the Black Knight are not in the same league as Spider-Man and Venom.
Yeah, no.
Seeing these pairings together. It's cool. I'm excited for it. And I hope it's teased more in Moon Knight, for example. But it is not the same level as Spider-Man and Venom.
But I do think that, real quick, I do think that Blade is going to be recruiting for the Midnight Suns. That's my prediction.
Yeah. And I'm with it. I wish we could have seen actual to not leave anything into doubt and not for the general audience to understand who this was. I think that they should have done that.
I don't know if you want to hold out showing Blade for the first time on his actual show or movie that they're doing. I'm not sure which one it is now, but
I don't know, because I kind of agree that it's like nobody realized who it was. It took the director telling us who it was. That's why we know who it was. I mean, people guess it. DC Outlaw messaged me and he guessed him, but we didn't know. And so I wish there'd been I don't know what it would be, but I wish there'd been another way that we could have definitively known at the time it was happening, because I think that would have made it cooler.
Yeah.
Because even the general audience, they won't know what the director said. They won't be paying attention to all the interviews. So again, like, they don't know who it'll be. I do think we're going to see Blade before the show, though, actually in live action, before his show or movie comes out.
Isn't there already rumors of him showing up in Moon Knight?
Blade,
For
yes.
Blade, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean. So he's not even going to be having a first appearance in his own movie. He is rumored to already be in Moon Knight. So
it would be interesting, so the question is, where do we see Dane Whitman next?
Oh man.
I would like to see him and Cersei go back through time, showing like him being able to see his ancestors using the sword, just to see the history of the sword. I don't know if it's just a little scene.
Frank, a girl sitting next to me. That was God's voice. That was good.
I don't know. Like, if if there is legit rumor, because I'm just looking at stuff at Black Knight right now, and there I see some clip art of like secret invasion behind this illustration of Black Knight. Um, I honestly don't know if they want to push everything supernatural towards the Midnight Suns. Maybe Blade. I think Moon Knight is a little weird for Black Knight. Maybe Blade.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, to me, Moon Knight is Blade. Blade is the first option. Moon Knight would be the second. It's got to be, to me, it's got to be one of those with the current knowledge we have of future projects, and of those, I think Blade makes more sense.
Yeah.
All right, so as we start winding this down, where do we think the Eternals will appear next? You know, we have another question following up of a sequel at that point, but where do we see the Eternals, any of them, appearing next?
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 after credit scene.
It's either that or Eternals 2 for me. Yeah. Those are my two votes.
I will say either Guardians of the Galaxy, or because wasn't the whole thing that like after the Infinity Saga we're gonna go a little bit more cosmos or whatever?
Yeah.
And I guess this is the start of it technically. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Hines. It's either the second, because I want to see these Eternals like just teaming up with some of our heroes, but right now it just feels weird to kind of just throw them in just to be like, hey, I had a movie before this, so I have to connect it to this, you know? So I would say Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or Eternals 2.
Yeah, co-sign that.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. So my next follow-up question, do we get an Eternals 2, you know, with how divided the reception has been? You know, again, when I say divided in a sense of critics versus current audience, and if you know, we're not getting into the whole Rotten Tomatoes debate. That's I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
If the movie's financially successful, yes, we will get a second one. The only real question to me is will it have the same director or not, because there have been several other times where the director of the first film of a Marvel franchise did not direct the next one. So it depends on how Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 very much did, but they were also keeping very similar tones and themes. Captain America, the First Avenger to the Winter Soldier, obviously switched directors, but it was a very different situation for both movies. I think it'll just depend on the story. But if it's financially successful, I don't see why. I don't see Feige saying we can't bring her back. We're not going to bring back this Oscar-winning director because some critics were mean to her on Rotten Tomatoes. So far, early, but it's on pace to have a good opening weekend. It's looking like it's going to be in the ballpark of 70 million. So I would say anything north of 60 million this week and 30 to 35 million next weekend combined, just domestic, is going to be good numbers. Like if they can hit those kind of numbers, it'll be good, I think.
That second weekend drop is going to be interesting.
Let's not rule out international box office.
Of course not. Absolutely.
This is probably the biggest, like you mentioned way back at the start of this review. This is probably the most representation we've gotten in one, maybe even superhero film, but definitely I think an MCU film.
Oh yeah.
So I hope this has more broad appeal internationally, like what Aquaman made his big bucks from international, not domestic. So
I was trying to think of that. Is what other films have been in this ballpark for representation? Like Suicide Squad was pretty, had quite a bit, I thought. And I was like, for comic book movies, and I was like, I don't know what else would be in this level of it, like this sheer volume.
Yeah, and again, we're saying, I think we're all in agreement that keep leaning into this Marvel.
Yes, please.
Keep doing this.
But I will say the one thing that will hinder it a little, I'm not saying that it will be a big thing. It really just depends on other countries that will refuse to show this movie because of the choices that Marvel has made in this movie. There's
already been countries that did.
It's not even about the choices that they made. It's more so them taking a stand for a change and editing the movie to take out the things that offend these people.
But it's still in the stance of like, hey, we made this movie with this in it.
Yeah, but they've done in the past, Clay. They've cut those things out and given the countries that want. So they're not doing this, and I can respect that a lot.
True.
Instead of putting out a Star Wars poster in China where you remove a certain person of color and have him completely off the poster. So this is a lot.
And as far as the continuing the sequel talk, but Thor the Dark World to Thor Ragnarok, completely different tone change and director to go along with that. So it may get that treatment, which I kind of hope it doesn't, to be completely honest. I think that if anything, my biggest gripes with this movie is for me, it felt like there was too much left on the cutting room floor, but they just need to work the script out to fit the 2 hour and 30 or 2 hour and what was this, 240, I believe, runtime. So including credits. So that's, I don't want it to make that big of a dramatic change, but if it does, I will. It's going to happen, so I can't stop it.
Well, I think that's a good segue to, where we rate this out of 10 and where it is in our list of MCU. So, why don't we, go down that path? And so we'll get each one of you will tell us where out of 10 and then where it ranks in your MCU. And so, Travis, why don't you start us off?
I didn't give a rating out of 10, which is pretty funny considering that's all I do on superhero discussions. But if I was I'd say between 7 and 7.5 out of 10. I'm not sure exactly where it sits. I need a little bit more time. Need to get with the council that rates things and just to make sure. But I did do the letterbox ranking, and something that was said when I was with Brent and Greg and Nathan talking about my overall what I thought about MCU movies. I've had an enjoyable experience with every MCU movie I've watched, so it's just which ones I enjoy more than the others. There is no hate in this list for me, and it falls right after Thor Ragnarok and right before Ant-Man at number 16 for me.
Okay.
But that's on one watch. I will say that's subject to change on a second watch. That's always my rankings after a second watch will be concrete.
Completely valid. Tony?
I'm probably going with a 5.5. The beginning dragged on. Enjoyed the second act. Third act, I could go here and there. But yeah, where I rank would probably be fourth to last. It's beating the Incredible Hulk, Captain America, First Avenger, and Thor: The Dark World.
Do you have Captain America, the First Avenger, that low?
Yes.
That is fascinating.
He needs to see your whole list now.
I kind of do.
That's wild. I will admit that is.
I would like you to show your work, please.
Yes.
Just screenshot me.
Yeah. Clay.
I ranked this immediately after seeing the movie. I do think that on any given day, depending on how I'm feeling, the three movies that are within the same range could all change. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a 1 out of 10 ranking. It is a 7.5 for me. And it is sitting between Captain America Civil War and Doctor Strange right now, sitting at number 12. It is, like I said in the very beginning of this review, it is not the best MCU movie, but it is definitely not the worst. I still have plenty below Eternals for sure.
Brent.
Well, I've seen it twice, and I still feel like I need to think on it more for like that firm. I'm not going to adjust it for a long time position, but right now where it is, I actually dropped it down a couple spots in my temporary rankings after my second watch because I kind of felt like it doesn't have the rewatchability of a lot of other MCU movies. And so factoring that in, Number wise, I guess I'll go 6.5. I guess I don't know. I don't think about them that way that often anymore. I have it ranked number 22, which, like what Travis said, it's like I like every movie on this list. My bottom movie is Thor: The Dark World, and I really enjoy that movie. So it's not meant to be. It's just you can't always be a top 10 movie. 21 is Doctor Strange, 22 is Eternals, and then Guardians 2 is 23 to give you some context of what it's around.
Yeah. I will kind of echo what ranking, number of views had. I'm a good 7.5. I enjoyed a change from what we normally got from an MCU movie, quote unquote, normally got. But I hope this is something that we continue to at least experiment with and build. And as we said, if this is successful in the box office over the next few weeks, I would like to see a continuation of this because I think there's a lot more to tell, and I think they can go in a lot of different directions. Where this ranks for me, here's my list. I do include, much similar to my co-host, the streaming shows on the list as considered canon. It is, I believe, 22 as well.
Holy crap! I am the highest out of all you guys.
Yep.
Holy
And again,
crap.
as I said, I enjoy this. I will go back and rewatch it. It's just right now this is based on one watching at that point, so it is definitely a temporary position. But it is Doctor Strange beats it out, but it is above Iron Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Iron Man 2, and last on my list is Thor: The Dark World. So.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this, Tony. Ragnarok is way too high on your list. We're gonna have to talk as far as being a co-host of Ranger Alliance.
Listen, don't be hating on a great film.
That's right.
That is a great film. No?
Thank you.
I enjoy playing Let's Get Help. I enjoy Get Help. So. All right. Well, thank you all so much, guys, for joining us on this review. It was a lot of fun. A long movie, a long cast, but I think we looked at every single possible angle of this. So we'll start with Travis. Tell people how they can follow you. Plug your shows.
You can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about pretty much anything. I co-host DC Alliance with my friend below me at my StreamYard setting anyway, Clay. We go live Monday nights on the same channel, and I do superhero discussions on Wednesdays. We're looking at Young Justice season 4 right now. I took a little break from that to watch and review Injustice, and there's nothing that'll ever take that back from me. So listen to my terrible experience on that, but that uploaded this week. So that's everything. And thanks for having me, guys. It's fun.
Tony.
Find me on Twitter at Walker93, as well as Instagram comic_discuss. I've took a bit of hiatus. I gotta go back into the. It's been a while since I've read a lot of comics. Gotta get back into that habit. Miss that.
Clay.
Of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter. The link tree there will send you to all the links to all the shows that I host, that including DC Alliance, Batman News Weekly, Comic Book Legion Podcast, Weird Science, Marvel, DC, and Manga, as well as Ranger Alliance, and of course the newly added Star Wars Alliance. This week we did review the High Republic Volume 1 that fits very nicely in the High Republic storyline, so go check that out.
And Brent.
Brent Tech Prime on Twitter, and on Fans Without Borders, we will be doing a Eternals review. So get more of my thoughts there. And that should be an interesting discussion. Well, I think that's going to go a way that's not typical for that show. So we'll find out.
Hey, you were so much more positive on your Fans Without Borders review of Venom than you were on
second viewing made a massive difference.
Yeah.
I am gonna be interested if are you teasing like a conversation that has already been taking place?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. I have a glimpse of Ray's thoughts on the movies, and I just think it'll be different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So. But you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. My show, World's Finest True Believers, will be dropping a new episode this Monday, looking at you speak of Ray. Ray is making his return on World's Finest True Believers. So look out for that preview tweet, and if you somehow don't figure out what we're talking about, message me and I'll help you out. And then you can follow this show on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can, want to make sure, again, plugging our sponsors, organicpricebooks.com. Use that code MarvelG at checkout for $2 off every single order. And Manscaped, 20% off, free shipping using GUA Pod. Make sure you go there for all your manscaping needs. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to email, tweet, give us your feedback on Eternals. Did you love it? Hate it? In between. We love hearing all that feedback. We'll be back and continue to rate and review GUA feed, Marvel Alliance feed on Apple Podcasts, whatever platform of choice may be. We'll be back to our regular live show on Thursday night, dropping in the feeds on Friday morning. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Thank you all, listeners. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. Well, Brent realized he flubbed up when the review happened for Venom, but we're not going to forget this time. At that point, we will have an end credits scene. Disney Plus predictions. Oh, all right. See you later, Travis.
Gentlemen, it's 20 after 1 a.m. I was studying up late last night till like 2 or 3. So I've yawned like 23 times in the last hour. So I'm going to have to jet. My only prediction for Disney Plus show,
Day, yep.
We're going to finally get more concrete announcements for Blade, times, episode count, all that jazz because of what happened this weekend.
I mean, it's a movie, not a TV show, but we'll see about that episode.
I don't know everything, Brent. I host DC Alliance and Superhero Discussions. Too many shows, keep track of.
See you later, buddy.
Later, guys.
Travis.
All right. So yeah, Disney Plus Day predictions. Who's got another one? Who's got some fun takes?
The 10 Rings. We're getting a show announcement for the 10 Rings.
All right.
Go ahead, Tony.
Going with Champions, but mainly focusing on the Young Avengers team, but they're not going to call it Young Avengers, going straight for the Champions, only because how much they're using that name in the comics instead of Young Avengers.
I like it.
Interesting.
I think this week, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we got some news on that I'll call it our World of Wakanda exploration is going to be animated.
Is that confirmed or is that still rumor?
I think it's rumor right now.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to dive into what that's going to be looking at more specific. I don't think we're going to get an episode count, but they're going to, I think,
maybe concept art
at that point. But I think it'll be one of a number of previews of Marvel animation on Disney Plus.
Interesting.
I was gonna go the same route as far as in the Black Panther world, with the World of Wakanda, but I did not know that it was rumored to be animated though, so that's very interesting. I had 3 predictions, one of them being World of Wakanda, one of them being a new Marvel Studios animated show that will be at least announced. And then lastly, I think that we're going to get some sort of new casting for Star Wars related stuff. So that's what I think as far as Disney Plus predictions.
We could potentially get footage or actual posters or something. And I'll go with footage for Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Moon Knight.
Oh, a trailer would be amazing for
like a sizzle.
I think a trailer will be that. Yep.
To me, it'd almost be like that first sizzle reel that had Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki in one. Be like, do something like that, but with these shows. I think that'd be pretty cool.
They've obviously wrapped for Miss Marvel. I think they've wrapped for She-Hulk, or they're very close.
Moon Knight's in production.
Moon Knight's in the middle of production.
Yeah, I see posters for Moon Knight.
Well, we haven't seen anything official yet, but I think we're also going to get an announcement of some Spider-Man movies coming to Disney Plus. I think it's happening.
Oh yeah, I think that is very much happening also, for sure.
At a minimum, the Tom Holland movies, but I think it's going to be more than the Tom Holland movies.
Yeah. You think we're going to think X-Men related?
No.
No.
Nah.
If they haven't
not
said
yet.
anything about
They didn't
Fantastic
say it in
Four,
this movie.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the word.
They
I
didn't
really
say
was.
mutants in this
Yeah.
movie. Nope.
Nope,
No.
they didn't. All in the game saying Agents of Atlas and Thunderbolt shows. Sure. Tony, any?
At least one more anime show, especially after the success of What If. Then
Sure. Yeah.
something anime is coming the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, something outside of that's why I agree with you. Like outside of the Wakanda like rumor at that point, outside of What If, I think if they're leaning hard into more building Marvel animated, I think that's.
Do you think we'll get another Hawkeye trailer? And I don't mean a 30-second TV type spot. I mean like an actual like minute and a half, 2 minute long trailer.
I don't think so. I
2-minute
hope
long
not.
trailer
I think-
featuring Kingpin.
Well, I mean,
That'll get the hits.
we did basically kind of get a second trailer a week or so ago.
The
Yeah,
minute
that
long
gave
one?
us
Yeah.
that gave us a little more of Echo and a few other scenes. So I think we're kind of done with that. So I don't need to see another trailer necessarily, but I like the idea of a nice sizzle reel of what's coming up next year.
They're gonna tease Kingpin. I'll take a trailer.
Yeah,
But I don't.
yeah. He will be the new Val of for Hawkeye. That'll
That's
be the
fine.
surprise. Yep.
Frank would love a Hulk animated show. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. So, yep. So Disney Plus Day next Friday. At that point, if we're gonna do something, I know us with Star Wars Alliance have been kind of talking something. So, nothing official yet. We'll keep you up to date, but again, we'll be back to our normal spot Thursday night, Friday morning in your feed. So, thank you all, and stay safe out there.
See ya.
Peace.